580 Sports Talk coming to you on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us, because we've got some hoops tonight. That's right, the Champions Classic. The good old Big Blue Nation taking on the Kansas Jacks. So it's the number one winningest team in college basketball history against the number two winningest team in college basketball history. And they are flipped because of what occurred
because KU was robbed
over the last month. So, yes, the Wildcats are now the number one winningest team in college basketball. The Jayhawks number two. We'll preview that. We'll talk a little K-State hoops as they took care of business against the Jackrabbits last night. We'll talk Chiefs. More specifically, did Andy Reid finally tell us what's going on? Do we actually have some info? We will get to that. The Bills! Oh, no. The Broncos. You know what? I'm happy for you, Broncos. You want to know why? Because you're going to be in the worst possible situation. You're going to be right out of the playoffs. So you're not going to get a great draft pick, but you're also not going to make the playoffs. So good for you, Denver. That's even better.
I don't know, man. I think the Broncos have really lit upon a winning formula. Let the other team step on rakes consistently for 60 minutes at a time. I think if they force 4.5 turnovers a game the rest of the season, I think they're going to be a tough out here down the stretch. But no, a sincere congratulations to the Broncos, who, with their stirring victory last night over the Bills, rose all the way from 14th place in the AFC standings to 14th place in the AFC standings. Get a grip, Bronco fans. Your team's still sorry.
We will get to that, including just a ridiculous ending to that football game. By both coaches. You too, Sean Payton. We'll get to all of that. A little overreaction, proper reaction. We're going to hear from Kent Swanson of the KC Sports Network. We're going to talk with Michael Swain. Get you the latest news on KU and K-State. A lot of injury news to get to for the good old Sunflower Showdown. We got all of that coming up today. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Also, check us out on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. 580 Sports Talk. You can interact with us in the comments section. Let us know how things are going. Because we're gonna
tell us how your day's going. Just let us know.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. I'm okay with that. It's always fun when someone says, "Hey, how you doing?" and you're not doing well, and you tell them, "I'm not. My day's not going on." They're just floored that they don't get the, "Oh, it's okay. It's going good." Yeah, that's one of my favorite interactions. So, "Hey, Jake, how you doing?" "Actually, pretty crappy." Oh, okay. And then they don't want to say, "Well, do you want to talk about it?" because they don't want to get involved in it. But they also don't want to act like they're not caring. That's always a fun interaction, I think.
Yes, they care as much as the time they have to hear you explain why you're not having.
Well, plus maybe I don't want to hear what you have to say.
I mean, yeah, it depends. Like sometimes, like if I ask you how you're doing, I care enough to know the answer.
Correct. But there's someone here in our office that I don't see very much. Like, "Hey, Jake, how you doing?" I say, "I'm doing really crappy right now." Or if I ask them that,
and it's your fault, and then don't elaborate any further.
Or if I say, hey, hey, Bob, how you doing? He says, that's crappy. And I'm like, "Oh, hope it gets better. I'm going to keep on walking." There's some people that I just don't got the time for.
Do you want to talk about it? Not with you.
Exactly. Keep on moving. Yeah. Pound sand. No. But you can let us know how your day is going. Will we respond if you're having a bad one? We'll try to,
maybe.
No, Jake's going to tell you to pound sand.
We got a lot on the agenda today. We'll see if we get there.
We do, including, did Andy Reid spill the beans when it comes to Kadarius Toney? Yesterday, Andy Reid basically said, yeah, Kadarius Toney's been on a pitch count. That, I for one, am surprised he said it. But number two, it's the right thing for me. I said this from the very beginning when he got his surgery, the day after his very first, he didn't even take technically, he did not even practice in training camp
He got
up
like
in St. Joe.
half a day in.
Not even
He
that.
got hurt on the first special teams rep.
No, not even the special teams. It was before the practice when they're just fielding punts. Like that technically practice hadn't started yet, okay? So I didn't want him to play week 1. I didn't. I said there's no reason to play Kadarius Toney week 1. The Chiefs can beat the Lions without Kadarius Toney. Lo and behold, I didn't think Travis Kelce would also be hurt. But then come to find out, if Kadarius Toney didn't play against the Lions, the Chiefs would have beaten the Detroit Lions if everything would have gone in place instead of Kadarius Toney. But I said, put him on IR. Give him 4 games. You need Kadarius Toney in January is when you need Kadarius Toney. You need this offense playing well. If you told me Kadarius Toney would be great for the first 8 games, then he gets hurt, I would say that's not what I need Kadarius Toney for. The Chiefs said all offseason, Kadarius Toney's the number 1 wide receiver. Kadarius Toney is the dude. You got Travis Kelce, say, I don't know how the Giants let that guy out of the building. This guy is incredible. This guy is amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Andy Reid said, yeah, he's been kind of on a pitch count. I'm okay with that. I am, because I want Kadarius Toney to be healthy for the final couple games of the regular season. And here's hoping that the Chiefs, beat the Bills, beat the Eagles, and they get to rest the final game of the year against the Chargers, have the bye week, and then take on, whoever in the divisional round of the playoffs. That's the goal. But I want Kadarius Toney to be healthy, right? That's the main thing. If they start deploying Kadarius Toney here and the offense improves, Andy Reid's going to look like a genius, to be honest with you. But is this the right way to do it? And do you think if Kadarius Toney, after having the surgery, because we talked to Matt Derrick yesterday or we talked to Matt Derrick on Friday, and Matt Derrick said, hey, yeah, he did have surgery. They want to make sure if this is the Kadarius Toney is going to run more slant routes, Kadarius Toney is going to be more involved. And if that ends up boosting this offense, maybe this is the way that the offense improves. This is it, right? Kadarius Toney overtakes what Juju Smith-Schuster did, because everybody else is the same from last year to this year, except you add in Rashee Rice and you flip Kadarius Toney with Juju Smith-Schuster. So a part of me says, let's see just how impactful Kadarius Toney is for this offense when the Kansas City Chiefs are actually trying to use Kadarius Toney as the number 1 wide receiver, which we got shoved down our throat, through all the OTAs and the offseason and everything. Or is this just Andy Reid covering for him?
On the one hand, I would very much like to believe, and I think it is valid to believe, that Toney is still maybe not 100% physically, and they are trying to make sure that they get the best out of him when the games matter most, which is essentially what they did last year down the stretch into the postseason, because he was recovering from that hamstring injury that he had when they acquired him from the Giants. And we have seen, as in last year's Super Bowl, how impactful Kadarius Toney can be, that the big play potential is there. And that is going to be something for an offense that has struggled to create the big play, the explosive play, that could be really valuable to the Chiefs as they go down the stretch here, try to wrap up the number 1 seed and go into the AFC playoffs to get that bye. But when you look at Kadarius Toney's snap counts for the season, it felt like Toney was super impactful in the opener, right? Because he made so many mistakes, but he was only on the field for a quarter of the offensive snaps on opening night against the Lions.
Which was a mistake, to be honest with you. The guy hadn't practiced but a week, and then you throw him out there and he gets 5 targets.
Yeah, it was only 16 snaps, but they were, pretty harmful snaps. It was 28% of the snaps the next week. Then he only played 2 snaps against the Bears, but then back to 24% of the snaps against the Jets. Then in weeks 5 and 6, his usage increased pretty significantly. He played in weeks 5 and 6 against Minnesota and Denver, 38% and 42% of the offensive snaps in those games. So the first Broncos game was the most we have seen Kadarius Toney on the field this year. 30 snaps in that game. He was targeted 6 times and caught 3 passes for a whopping 9 yards. Now, one of them was a touchdown, but 3 catches for 9 yards. He also carried the ball twice for a whopping -5 yards. He also threw a pass in that game.
I do remember that.
Yeah, Toney threw a pass in that game. So that was the big Toney game. That was the game where they have played him the most and used him the most. And since then, his snap count has gone from 19%, from 42% against Denver, 19%, 20%, 12%. So while there is evidence that because of the injury, you're trying to stay off of this player who could help you down the stretch, there is also evidence, if you want to look for it, that they gave him a shot against Minnesota and Denver to be a bigger part of the offense. He had 12 targets in those 2 games and caught 8 of them for 35 yards. And maybe those 2 games were the Chiefs saying, I don't know what we got here. Maybe it's nothing. So this is like a ink blot, Rorschach test, right? Whatever you want to see, you can say that you see when it comes to Kadarius Toney.
The thing that makes me just so puzzled is they were so in on Kadarius Toney being the guy. Like that's the thing. You're going to, did you misevaluate that bad? Or what that's why I'm just so puzzled by all of this.
Circumstances change. I mean, if you go into an entire, you go into a year thinking he's going to be a featured piece, and then he doesn't even make it through one warm-up drill before he gets hurt, that probably makes you think maybe we overestimated what we can get out of him. Maybe we have to approach this differently. Maybe he has to be a second-half player. Think things change. I think societally, we probably place way too much value on what coaches say, like during the week. And I'm not trying to say turn off our show every Wednesday at 2:30 when we hear from Andy Reid, because I think there are valuable things that come from that. But in terms of projections for players, in terms of what we are told publicly plans are, we as fans probably put too much weight into it because things do change, and the team should be given the space to understand that their situations can change.
I agree with that 1,000%, but their actions say that Kadarius Toney was the guy. They didn't go out and get somebody else. Like
their actions until August said that he was the guy.
Yeah, that's why.
But then he got hurt the first drill of practice.
Yeah, that's why that they also and everything is not. Well, if they didn't think Kadarius Toney was the guy, they would have gone out and got somebody. They tried to get OBJ. They tried to get DeAndre Hopkins, but the Chiefs also have a limit to what they're going to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And so they thought, well, our priority list was to go out and get a defensive lineman. They got Charles Omenihu. Our priority list was the defense. That was it. We are going to go get, because they could have signed Juju Smith-Schuster. They could have. They chose not to, because I think they felt that Kadarius Toney was going to be good. So I do think that, eliminate everything that the Chiefs said, but look what the Chiefs did this offseason with their roster construction. I think they thought that Toney would be able to do it. And to me, that is a miscalculation by the Chiefs. Because
all right, yeah,
it's a miscalculation simply because one of the best abilities is availability. Kadarius Toney cannot be trusted to be on the field at a regular rate. He's not a Travis Kelce. He's not a Joe Tooney. He's a guy who's gonna get hurt. And that, to me, that was the biggest risk of all of it. But now, this is where I wonder if they just flat out misevaluated the talent and the fit. Is he's healthy for all we know.
Is he though? Because Matt Derrick told us that either last week or the week before that he's not 100%.
He's.
I think that was before the Frankfurt game, is that he's not fully healthy.
He's been on the injury report, but he's been a full participant. So that kind of makes me wonder about,
Well, that just makes me think that the Chiefs are just trying to get him as close to 100% before they use him.
And that is perfectly fine. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, it's just different than what we expected.
I want Kadarius Toney to be 100% come week 15 and start playing in week 15 and be really good. Do the Frank Clark,
be a January player.
Be Frank Clark, miss a couple games because of weird situations, don't really play that well, and then all of a sudden show up and you're Bruce Smith in the playoffs.
In basketball, in professional basketball, they talk about players being 82 game players and then 16 game players, guys whose skill sets help you in a short series, somebody you can rely on to win 16 games in the playoffs, because that's somebody you need to win through 4 best of 7 series to win a championship. I don't know that there's 3 game players in the NFL. I don't know if that's a concept to have 3 game players.
If it is, Frank Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there ever was one, it was Frank Clark.
He's the all-NFL team there.
Maybe Toney is that guy too. It's not a perfect comparison, because this player that I'm about to compare Toney to, and we've drawn the parallel before, to Percy Harvin, where Harvin had 4 seasons that were electric.
No, he was terrific
in the NFL. He's offensive rookie of the year out of the gate, like this electrifying offensive presence. And Seattle saw him as a missing piece, trade a first-round pick to get him. He played 3 games in the championship season for the Seahawks. 3. 1 regular season game. The divisional round game. Didn't dress for the conference championship. Played in the Super Bowl. What does anybody remember? What he did in the Super Bowl. He took a kickback. He had a couple of big offensive plays. He helped them win that championship as much as you can possibly help a team win a championship when you only play 3 games.
And that's basically what Toney did. Like, it's the exact same.
Do you remember what happened in year 2 of Percy Harvin as a Seahawk?
He got in fights with his teammates.
No, that happened in year 1. No, it's if you look at the media day, Super Bowl media day team photograph, you can see the black eye that Harvin gave Golden Tate. Like, that is an open secret. He punched Golden Tate in the face. I don't know why. Golden Tate, kind of a punchable guy. Let's be real honest about Golden Tate being a little bit of an agitator. But yeah, Percy Harvin, even going back to his college days when he fought the strength and conditioning coach at Florida, not always the easiest guy to get along with. We have no evidence that Kadarius Toney is similarly difficult to get along with or similarly an agitating force in the locker room. But year 2 of Percy Harvin as a Seattle Seahawk is not really a thing that is right to say. It's really more year 1.5, because they traded him mid-season. They traded him to the Jets. They and really gave him away for nothing. I think it was like a 6th round pick in the end.
He was a mercenary basically for 3 games.
But the reason I'm drawing the parallel there is now they thought they were going to have this guy for a full season. The Seahawks did with Harvin, and in practice didn't quite work. Like, he was a little more available. He played in 5 games in that second year, but they traded him before the trade deadline, and it didn't work. Now, how much of that was off the field, how much of that was on, is obviously up for interpretation. So again, it's not a perfect comparison here, but the idea that you come back with this idea of what this player is going to be, and then they're just not quite that player. And it's difficult to balance. We're not getting the player we thought we were getting with how do we make the most of the player we have. For Seattle, that wasn't a conversation worth having about Harvin, because he wasn't, a real harmonious presence to have in the locker room. But with Toney, that's what the Chiefs need to figure out. Okay, if he's not going to be this, if our picture in our head for what we thought Kadarius Toney was going to be is not this, then what can we do to get the best out of him? And that may involve keeping it close to the vest with him, keeping all the Toney package stuff off of tape until you get to the big games against the Bills, against the Raiders in division, against the Bengals.
It can only go up.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing. Like, oh, we've got nothing from him. So maybe if we slowly, drip him in, then it can only go up. So that's why I wonder if maybe this could be a huge boost, because if he plays like what they thought he would be, like in a vacuum, this is what we're going to bring, electric, big playability, then the Chiefs offense will improve pretty dramatically.
The only thing I would push back against that you had mentioned, Jake, is about choosing not to bring back Juju because they had Kadarius Toney. I believe with every fiber of my being, the Chiefs had, by October last year, had no plan to bring him back. I don't think it had anything to do with Kadarius Toney because his knees are one bad cut away from ending his career. And he stinks. He is the worst receiver in the NFL.
How much is that because of the situation he's in?
You don't need the quarterback to throw you the ball to get separation, and he can't do it. He is never open. Like, if you watch a Pats game, he is never open, ever. He can't do it. And this is, I guess, sort of beside the point, but I think the Chiefs knew they were never bringing him back.
And that might be.
Because if they had at least, considered it, he probably would have gotten offered a contract. I was just looking. I don't think he was ever even offered a contract. Not even the we'll go 2 for $15, but if you find something better, go take it. As far as I'm aware, the Chiefs never even offered him.
Coming up, we're going to talk about what went down last night. That was one of the worst football games ever. We'll get to that coming up here on 580 Sports. Alrighty, we will get to what what occurred last night in Monday Night Football. Before we get to that, I just want to point out that the Buffalo Bills 5-5. They're 5-5 after 10 games. They have lost as many games as they've won. The Cincinnati Bengals are 5-4. All right. I just want to point that out real quick. It just shows you how difficult it is to stay at the top. Okay. These were two teams that everybody was like, yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to win it. Josh Allen's going to eventually win a Super Bowl, right? And he very well might. But I do want to point out just how hard it is when you win your division to stay atop the division that you're in. You play a tougher schedule. You can't allow the mistakes. it's hard to stay atop in the NFL. And that should put into perspective that the Chiefs have hosted the AFC title game now 5 straight years. That's insane. It really, really is. And that's why, we've said so many times that what the Patriots did for 20 years ruined people's expectations. Like that is stupid what they did. I mean, they went to 3 Super Bowls in a row, won 2 of the 3. Like they were ridiculous. Like, Tom Brady winning 7 Super Bowls screwed up everybody's thought process on, people are like, well, if Mahomes, he needs to win 4 of them. You know how many people have won 4, let alone 7? Like, what the
3?
What?
Who have won 4? Montana, Bradshaw, and Brady.
And Brady, if you're talking quarterbacks, yes. Yeah. Like that's crazy. So what you're seeing should also put into perspective. There's a good chance the Bills are not making the playoffs. Now, I don't see the Bills making the playoffs. Like, I really, really don't. They're 5-5, and they got 7 tough games left the rest of the way. Maybe not 7 tough ones, but they've got the Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, and Dolphins left. That's 5. And they already lost to the Jets, and they already lost to the Patriots.
Yeah, they're 0-2 against the Jets and Patriots.
Yeah. Like they're going to lose. That is why it is so difficult to stay at the top. Same thing with the Bengals. It is so difficult to stay at the top, but yet we talk about, Justin Herbert, right? He's so great. Well, if he's so great, look at he never won a playoff game, right? Like, that's what I want to make it known. Like, don't take for granted what the Chiefs have done these last 5 years. Like, and
I think
we do.
I think honestly, and I've brought this up before. I think it's extremely simple to point to what has gone wrong with the Buffalo Bills since this so-called window opened. And for what it's worth, I think in terms of like Josh Allen's career as the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, I don't think this is the worst thing to have a bad season. I really don't, because clearly things need to be changed. And a season that's a disaster,
you got to take a step back to take a step forward.
That spurs change. So I think long-term, this actually might be a blessing in disguise if they get it right going forward. If they don't, then it's a total disaster. But I was going to say is the thing I've brought up multiple times with the Bills. Since their window opened, how have they gotten better? Their window opened when they traded for Stephon Diggs. Correct. Because that coincided with Josh Allen taking a completely unprecedented step forward in NFL history of starting quarterbacks, going from wild man who can't complete anything to, oh, shoot. Like, dang, he's still erratic, but the good is unbelievable.
Yes, you can win big with him, as Stephon Diggs' brother is only too happy to point out.
Right. So what have the Bills done to get better since this window for them opened?
They signed Von Miller.
And then he got hurt.
Who has gotten hurt? And that's not their fault. I mean,
right.
A torn ACL for an old guy happens.
Hold on. They signed a 34-year-old.
Well, yeah, that's the risk you run with that.
Exactly. So it's not like you can't control it. You can't, but the odds of a 34-year-old playing like he was 28, that ain't a good thought.
That's entirely fair.
Other than that, though, if you're talking about like acquiring elite talent, they have not done that. They have not done that on the offensive line. They have not done that through the draft. They have not really done that through free agency. Their best players now are basically still the guys that were their best players when the window opened. And that sometimes that's fine, but they haven't buttressed their top talent with like
even good role players.
Yeah, good role players.
Like I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be a really nice NFL player.
I do too.
Rookie tight ends, even in a class that has so far proven to be really good with Laporta and Kincaid and Musgrave and Meyer, like it looks like this is a really good tight end class. That still is only going to do so much for you in their first 1 or 2 years. Then look at the coaching staff. What has happened to their coaching staff in the last 3 years? Has it gotten better? Well, they lost a proven offensive coordinator and replaced him with a guy who was 100% unproven, who clearly failed at the job. Okay, and defensively...
Real quick, you got Brian Daboll.
Make
sure you mention the name there.
Okay, Brian Daboll went from the Bills to now the Giants, and that's its own thing. But he was a good offensive coordinator.
He was the one who got Josh
Allen figured out.
Yes.
defensively, what happened? You went from a proven defensive coordinator, stubborn maybe in Leslie Frazier, but a proven successful defensive coordinator who lost a power struggle with the head coach who now has full control over that defense and is in over his head trying to be both a defensive coordinator and a head coach in Sean McDermott. They have continued to trend downward. At least the Bengals, who largely have the same core and even have lost a piece like Jesse Bates and they've dealt with injuries, at the very least you can say, well, they've tried to make their offensive line better. They've added La'el Collins was a failure, but they tried. Orlando Brown is who he's always been, but at least they tried. They've done things. Maybe it hasn't worked out, but they've made those moves. The Bills haven't done anything.
And they've had continuity on their coaching staff,
yes,
which goes a long way too. Where
remarkable
you
continuity.
Just pointed out that the Bills have not had that. And I'd push back, though, on your assertion that Ken Dorsey was a failure as an offensive coordinator. He's not out there fumbling the ball. He's not out there throwing interceptions.
True.
The Bills had the number one offense in success rate in the NFL through the first 11 weeks of the season. Number one in success rate. Number third in EPA, expected points added. Ken Dorsey lost his job today, not because he's a bad offensive coordinator. He lost his job because Sean McDermott's running out of excuses as to why he should get to keep the job.
That's fair.
Because what we saw last night was a level of team-wide mismanagement that can only fall at the feet of the head coach. Lack of discipline, dumb penalties, mismanaging game situations. Over his head as both head coach and defensive play caller, very possibly is what we're dealing with here with Sean McDermott. But I have watched them the last 2 weeks. I've watched every snap of their last two games against Cincinnati and against Denver. One game was a totally understandable loss, road loss against a good team. That was inexplicable to lose a football game to a team that will not let their quarterback throw the ball down the field anymore. Inexplicable to lose that football game. And you lost it because you're not well coached. That's not a well-coached football team.
And you got to tell you're the head coach. You got to tell your quarterback, because Josh Allen, as Stephon Diggs' brother pointed out, Josh Allen is either going to be amazing or 2 turnovers a game are happening. Nobody has turned the football over more than Josh Allen. Nobody has thrown more interceptions than Josh Allen. Josh Allen, right? You know, the baggage that he has is turnovers, whether it be in the red zone, because that was the big thing last year, right? He turns the ball over, plain and simple. But it's not just Josh Allen. He does. The entire team does. The Buffalo Bills offense turns it over. And when you turn over the football, that's the number one way to how you get got. Plain and simple. Okay? No other way. They had 4 turnovers in the game yesterday. And if they played any semblance of an offense, they don't. The game doesn't come down to the very, very end. Watch the head coach get your point across. You know, there's a fine line between letting Josh Allen do his thing, but also telling Josh Allen, hey, you need to rein your thing in a little bit. Okay.
They're -9 in the turnover department the last 6 weeks, and not coincidentally, are 2-4 in those games. And in the game they lost before that, the opener against the Jets, they were -3 in the turnover department in that game.
Look what happened at the end of the game. There are dumb situations. There are 2 dumb situations by the Bills, which complete lack of any coaching, complete lack of coaching. And then you've got a complete ridiculous situation for the Broncos. It was like the Bills said this. It's 3rd and 16. The ball's at the 45-yard line. You got the sack. It's 3rd and 16. The Broncos have not thrown the football down the field at all. So McDermott's like, I know. Let's blitz everybody. Blitz the house, right? Why? Why do you need to do that? So instead, what do? You play man coverage. You just throw up a YOLO ball, and it just so happens that the Bills guy got beat, because sometimes you get beat as a corner, and then he gets grabbed, pass interference, whether or not you don't like the spirit of it and all that kind of stuff, like where we're going to reward
it's lame to reward the underthrown deep ball.
That's like when we were playing like 500 as a kid. You just chuck it up, and There's never been a game of 500 that someone didn't end up with a bloody nose or shoved to the ground or pushed or
Facts.
elbowed or anything like that, right? Because that's what happens when you just chuck the ball up in the air. But the Bills shouldn't have all-out blitzed. That was stupid.
Mhm.
And then the Broncos are like, here, hold my beer, Buffalo. And they decide to use their timeout and then run 2 plays and then rush on their kicker who'd had a hard time anyways on that day.
Yeah, that was wild.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Just kick the football with 24 seconds left, kick off, play defense. Like, this is too risky of a situation.
They made it work earlier and wanted to flex. I'm pretty sure that's why they did it.
So that's stupid. So that was the first hold my beer moment, was the Broncos going, hey, you blitzed on all-out 3rd down and we just chucked it up there. Ha, hold my beer. They do this. And then Sean McDermott does the even double and was like, hold on, you got to hold both of my beers here. I'm going to leave 12 men on the field. Like, are you serious how that game finished?
Well, that's where it comes down to coaching.
My goodness, on both sides.
Well,
On both
yeah,
sides.
I mean, Peyton had a bad process. They just got lucky with the result. They screwed up royally. But, like, to me, it comes down to coaching. If you cannot get your guys to do a simple thing, like knowing how many players are on the field at the snap, that comes down to the top. That comes down to this is an undisciplined team,
Yes.
and discipline comes down to coaching.
But discipline also comes down to turnovers. Don't throw the ball up.
Yeah.
Don't force it in there.
Especially not with 37 seconds left in the half. Just get to the locker room.
And you're throwing that pass. That's a 40-yard across the way pass that middle schoolers can read.
It had no chance. It had no chance from the moment it left his hand. And that, I mean, you want to talk about what cost him the game? That 3 points was pretty vital.
Yeah, no, I thought the Bills, if they won that game, they'd be 6-4. All right. No, they're not making the playoffs. The Bills are not going to make the playoffs.
I am also ready to declare it Jover for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, they ain't making playoffs. Not going to happen. Coming up next, we'll get the latest update on the Sunflower Showdown. Alrighty, let's get to the news of the Sunflower Showdown on this Tuesday. Let's start with the thing that matters most. the status of Jason Bean. It's not looking good, folks. Lance Leipold said that he is progressing, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be available. So we get down to the basis of what the Kansas Jayhawks do. And according, Brendan, to what you know and what Michael Swain, we're going to talk with Swain coming up at 4:30. And coaches do it differently. And it also depends on the position. But the way that the Jayhawks operate is if you don't practice, you normally don't play. That's how they do it. Now, certain positions, you can do it differently. You know, as a wide receiver, if your ankle hurts on a Tuesday and you don't practice Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, but your ankle feels better on a Friday, you know, sometimes you can play. But in some coaches, they say, no, if you didn't practice all week, you're not prepared for the game. I think it differs from player to player.
Yes.
It does. Like, let's say a backup, you know, doesn't practice all week and then finally practice on Friday. Then it doesn't really matter if you hold them out or not. But according to Lance Leipold, Cole Ballard is going to get the reps of practice. And they did something different this week. That was also something interesting. They normally have Sunday off. That's their off day. They didn't do that this week. They had Sunday be a practice day, and they had Monday off. Okay? Some do Sunday off, some they do Monday. Like Washburn, they come in, look at film, work out, do a little walkthrough, do a little light practice on Sundays, and then they have Monday off. You are required to have 1 day a week off in college athletics in every sport that you play. So today was their first practice for K-State. Doesn't look like he's going to see a whole lot of reps. I get his thought process. I understand it. I also wonder if Jason Bean isn't the exception to the rule, because I don't know what goes on at practice. No clue. But from what I saw on Saturday, more so Sunday when I rewatched the game, I don't think KU can beat K-State with Cole Ballard. I just don't think there's a viable passing opportunity. Now, I am not there at practice. I am not. Maybe he's better this week at practice, and it'll be different. You know, it might be. But from what I saw, from what Jason Bean can do to what Cole Ballard can do, 3 days of not practicing to me is not enough to deter me from starting Jason Bean. I am also a radio host, and I am not a 5-time national championship and, you know, resurrection of the worst program in Division I there for a couple years.
More than a couple.
I was trying to be nice.
That's fair.
Like that's where it's a
no, I know what you're saying.
Now, if Jason Bean, if he had a concussion and he ain't feeling good Friday, then he's not playing. Like
right.
you that's just the way it is. Football, that happens, right? But if he's able to practice on Friday, he knows the offense enough that I would play him if everything checks out.
I think
very complicated situation.
Yeah, I think part of it is the fact that of KU's 3 quarterbacks, Jalen Daniels to Jason Bean to Cole Ballard, you've got 3 very different quarterbacks. I think that is part of what this comes down to, and thus your game plan is a little bit different. Jason Bean's skill set is he's really good at throwing the deep ball.
And he's fast.
Jalen Daniels is a more complete quarterback. He's a great athlete, not as fast as Jason Bean. He's the best decision maker of the group. He's your best overall quarterback. Yes. Cole Ballard then is a different player than Jason Bean is. And interestingly, and I saw this while I was doing some stuff I was doing some freelance tape study this week of what Cole Ballard did. KU actually ran some different running concepts with Cole Ballard than they run with Jason Bean. Like, you'd think of Bean as the sprinter of the group. You can pretty much do anything in the run game. They actually ran some different running concepts with Ballard out there than they run with Bean, which I think is interesting.
He's a little bigger.
He is.
Like,
Yeah, he's burly. He can move a little bit.
Yeah, he's not really a track star like Bean is, but he's somebody that, you hit him.
Yeah.
You might not bring him down on first contact.
The number one example of that, KU for the last 3 games has run a lot more wildcat. They've run a lot more direct snap to Devin Neal. They've done a little bit of high shot too, but mostly with Neal catching the snap. The last 3 weeks they've run it, I don't remember more than one snap when Jason Bean was the other guy in the backfield. Generally, it's either Jared Casey or Daniel Highshaw who's also in the backfield when Devin Neal catches the snap, except when Cole Ballard played. Cole Ballard was in the backfield when Devin Neal was catching snaps, so they use him a little bit differently. My official stance for if Cole Ballard's going to play in this game, if KU is going to let it rip and they're going to say, look, we got to throw if we're going to win. Like, we have to be able to move the ball through the air if we're going to win against K-State. And that's true. And we're going to turn them loose. And if it blows up in our face, at least we went down swinging. That's the way KU is going to have a chance to beat K-State. If they just say, hey, we're going to let it rip no matter what. If KU comes into this game with a scared game plan and they don't throw with Ballard more than 10 times, K-State's going to win. And K-State's probably going to win by multiple scores. It's just the way it is. You're going to have to take risks throwing the ball with Ballard. I think he can throw. Now, he's not Bean throwing, and Bean's not Daniels throwing. So you're limited one way or the other. I think you have to take risks in this game, though, if you're KU. And you have to risk saying, look, you've been with the program for this long. You throw in practice. You know these guys. Sounds from what I have heard like Grimm is trending toward playing. That's a good thing because you've got to have him out there. You've got to have your playmakers out there. If it ends up being Ballard, you still got to throw the ball. And if you play scared, you're going to lose. That's how I view this matchup.
It's one of those things where, okay, are you going to try to win or are you trying to make it close?
Yeah, and I hope
like they can try to make it close by just running it, hope the defense plays well.
Yeah, you play like your Air Force. Yeah.
But the odds of you winning that game,
almost zero.
Andy Kotelnicki, we know, can scheme guys open. We've seen him do that
he did it last week.
Yeah, no matter who the quarterback is. So there's going to be some of that stuff in the playbook. I would expect to see some of those familiar plays, getting the tight ends up the seams can be successful, especially given the limited linebacker group that K-State's working with. Jake Clifton's not going to play the rest of the year, so they're going to be undermanned again at the linebacker spot. But I keep thinking back to what K-State did to the other first-time starting quarterback on the road that they saw this year, Josh Huber for TCU. They had him in hell for 60 minutes. And TCU had a good running game, and Monty Bailey ran for 100 yards in that game. But Joe Klanderman's one of the best defensive coordinators, I think, in the country. And the thought of him being able to disguise some coverages, disguise some blitzes, and throw some things at Cole Ballard that he has never seen before, I think that's just a bridge too far for KU to be able to overcome.
So K-State wise, it is Jake Clifton is going to be done for the year. Huge bummer.
That sucks.
They're thin at linebacker, no question. Clee Duke will not face additional punishment. That's not a huge deal there for K-State. But that's I do like the fact that Chris Kleiman throwing a shot at Charlie Weiss. When he was asked how much different is it to prepare for KU than when he first took over, it's light years different.
They're a real football team.
Yeah,
it's like a Boogie Nights. It's a real film, Jack. It's a real football team.
It's light years different, man. That is
no, but like
I know. I just find just find it hilarious that without saying it, Les Miles and that crew had no idea what was going on. So, but
literally,
that's the latest news when it comes to the Sunflower Showdown. We'll get to a little bit more news when it comes to the Big 12 coming up a little bit later on as well. We got overreaction, proper reaction, random question Tuesday, and then we'll hear from Kent Swanson coming up in the 3 o'clock hour here on 580 WIBW. 2, 580 Sports Talk, coming to you on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for stopping by. Jake Levon, Brandon Dorzinski, Dan Lucero with you. We'll get to some K-State hoops and the Champions Classic tonight. KU taking on Kentucky. That is right. So that'll be coming up this evening if you want to watch some hoops. The Champions Classic also got renewed for next year. KU will be taking on Michigan State. The only thing that stinks is that, well, for me, the only thing that stinks is KU Kentucky's the late game. That's what stinks.
Yeah, I don't love that.
And if you think it's starting at 8:30,
I got a bridge to sell you.
You probably think your Southwest flight's taking off on time too.
Jeepers. Yeah, you're that. If 8:30, basically.
Southwest
if you're like,
didn't deserve that, except they did.
No,
they absolutely did.
Spirit deserved that. Frontier Airlines deserved that.
No, Frontier Airlines game wouldn't happen at all.
Buddy, let me tell you about the last time I flew Frontier Airlines.
And I do mean the last time I flew Frontier Airlines.
I had to lie to get through security. You guys. The line was so long and the people working there were moving so slow that by the time I got my bag, I told my wife, just go. You know, we don't have a babysitter. Someone's got to go get the kids at that point in time. So my wife just goes through and I'm dealing with our bags and all that kind of stuff. That's the first mistake. If you go to Frontier, you better not check a bag. Anyways, we did because I have my golf clubs. My flight leaves at 6:45. Let's say it was like 3:45, right? I finally get my bag checked at 3:30. I have 15 minutes to get through security at the Denver airport. There's a portion of the Denver airport where it's like, if you've got this on your ticket, you can go over here. It's not clear, or it's not TSA pre-check. It's got something else. I'm just like, let's see how good my BSing skills are, because it's the only way I'm making it. So I get up there and they're like, yeah, it doesn't have it on your ticket. And I was like, well, I had it. I don't know what happened to it. They're like, I can't let you go. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Blah, blah, blah. They're like, okay, fine. I'm like, oh my God, it worked. So I go sprinting up there, and now I jet up in front of everybody. And then again at the ticket, they're like, you don't have this on your ticket. I was like, well, they let me through. And they're like, all right. And ended up making it right before the flight took off.
You want to know the two surest ways to get where you want to go? One, be a white man. Two, look like you know where you're going.
Yeah. Force.
Look like you know where you're going and like
you
you belong there, and that will open many, many doors for you, as long as you meet criteria number one.
The last time I flew Southwest, we were coming back from Savannah at the end of our summer trip down to South Carolina and Georgia. Weather screwed up the flight. But you heard this story. Weather screwed up the flight, and that jacked it all up in the first place. And I don't like things that I can't control.
Well, weather is not a problem for me because you have no control over weather.
No, sure. Weather was not a problem. What was a problem was that when we knew we were going to miss our connection, that the flight they booked us on the next morning, we were told we were flying we got routed through Nashville. So we were Nashville to then Dallas to Kansas City, only to find out while my wife was just going through her itinerary after we got to Nashville, that was not actually the case. It was Nashville to Austin to Dallas to Kansas City, with less than an hour layover between Austin and Dallas. Why would you connect from Austin to Dallas? If you know anything about Texas, you would know that's stupid. That's dumb and a waste of our time.
It's almost like having a flight from Salina and a layover in Hayes.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Salina Airport, man. They're the
Salina Regional, man.
They're the reals.
I don't know that I'll ever go back to Denver solo another way in my life. I'm certainly never going to drive it again if I can just fly Salina.
Yeah, so we ended up,
baby. Even with that layover in Hayes.
We ended up talking to a different gate agent who was like, oh, yeah, I can get you a flight directly to Dallas. You don't have to fly through Austin. Why is that not the first thing that happened? I am not on speaking terms with Southwest right now. They are.
I think all airlines are not great, but it's a tough situation.
The other side of the spectrum is I have not had any problems within the last year or two when I've flown a Delta flight. The problem is that I also had to give the rights to my first 3 children to fly their like lowest tier of flight because they're so expensive.
And then
because it's not miserable to fly them.
But then you also have to give up, your left pinky toe to check a bag.
Well, I don't check bags.
Well,
I'm not a woman, so I don't check a bag.
His email address is
the views and opinions expressed by one of the hosts on this program.
My wife checks the bag when we take a trip. I often don't.
Well, I normally don't, but you can't check golf clubs.
In fact,
there's an easy solution for that.
Well, yeah.
Find a better hobby.
Yeah, from the text line. Whoa, Brendan. Whoa. I think Brendan just got on the bad side of a whole bunch of people there.
That's fine.
No.
I only answer to one woman at this point.
It all depends.
I'm deleting my login from the text line as we speak.
Yeah, but we got a lot more to get to. We'll get to Random Question Tuesday, as well as Kent Swanson is going to talk all things Chiefs with us. Who's his defensive MVP as of this point? How will Kadarius Toney impact? We'll get to all that coming up. But it's time for a little overreaction, proper reaction.
I forgot to play the thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You're overreacting.
There's a proper reaction. A very understandable reaction.
Yes. Overreaction, proper reaction. Michigan and Ohio State will both be in the college football playoff.
That is an overreaction. I don't think there's going to be room for them both.
Really?
Yeah, I would agree with that because the way I view it, overreaction. The way I view it,
okay,
the winner's going to get in.
No, yeah, obviously.
Unless
they lose to.
They trick off the Big Ten title game against Iowa.
Is Iowa going to be?
Yes. Yeah, they're going to cruise to win the West.
They're going to be 10-2.
Iowa's 10-2.
They're going to be.
Yeah, they're going to be.
Wow.
Yeah,
because they're not. Who they got this week? Illinois.
LOL.
Yeah, it's Illinois. Illinois this week. Nebraska next week. They're winning both of those games.
Yeah, they'll win both.
They're 10-2.
What's the under this week, by the way?
30.5 last time.
Oh yeah, cash it already.
Illinois down to their backup quarterback. You're not
who did, for what it's worth, throw for 500 yards last week.
And those, for what it's also worth, came against the Indiana Hoosiers
in a 3-point overtime win.
They're going to be 10-2.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yes, this is what happened. It was 2 years ago. Iowa was like 10-2, and they went into the Big 12 championship game or Big 10 championship game, and Michigan beat them. I believe it was 42-3.
Was that what the final score was?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So you're going to get the Big 10 winner is going to get in.
Okay.
Georgia is going to go undefeated in the regular season. They are going to get in. They are then going to lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game. So Alabama is going to end up getting in. And you've got one spot. You're going to go 2-2, Big Ten and SEC? I have a hard time seeing that personally. I think you're going to get either Florida State or you're going to get the Pac-12 winner or you're going to get Texas.
Yeah, I think all of those teams are going to have, presuming it's 1-loss Texas or 0-loss Florida State, certainly.
Or 0-loss Washington.
0-loss Washington or 1-loss Oregon. If they get Washington back in the Pac-12, I would give those teams all precedent over a team that did not even play for its conference championship, went 11-1. I think that's going to be how that goes.
I agree with that. Overreaction or proper reaction? Now that the shine has washed off of Colorado this year, there is no cool team in college football. Like, to the average American, there's no cool team in college football.
Overreaction.
Okay.
Jim Harbaugh told me that Michigan's America's team.
Doesn't mean they're cool. Baseball's America's pastime. Baseball ain't cool to the average American. Sorry, Dan.
That's fine. You're just going to insult everybody today. Everybody who's ever.
Okay,
every
the first
man,
thing I said was definitely insulting.
Oh,
What I
every
just said at least
man
has a
who's ever
basis in
checked the
fact.
bag, and now everybody who likes baseball's not cool. And
Man, what's he gonna say to me now?
what? Who else you going to go after? You go
I
after
told
puppies?
you to get a new hobby.
Yeah, that was messed up, man. I like golf. You need to get more hobbies.
Probably. No, that's fair.
Anyway,
Here's a hobby you should consider: sleeping, going to bed at a normal time.
yeah.
I went to bed a half an hour earlier yesterday than I did the day before. I was in bed at 2:25 last night.
That makes me nauseous.
To your question, yeah, that's interesting because
Has there ever been a cool team?
Yeah, I think we talked about this early in the season. I think early 2000s USC was legitimately cool.
USC was cool as hell. Miami before them,
yeah, the U
was cool as hell.
Okay, so
since then, though, I don't think
you've
there has
given
been.
me like 2000 Miami.
2019 LSU was cool. They were scoring
that's
60
the
points
closest
a game.
That's
with all
the
those,
closest thing we've had since, I think, probably.
with the
Because Burrow kind of had he's Joe Cool, and they had, people liked Coach O, and they had like 900 NFL players.
Odell Beckham was at all their games.
OBJ was there all the time.
giving them $100 bills
money
at the end of it.
But like Florida State, for example, 2013. That's one of the best teams that I don't really remember the U all that well. I was too young. But I remember Florida State. That every single starter on that team, offense, defense, made it to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
They were unbelievable. They weren't cool though. No one I want to be Jameis. No kid was saying I want to be
Oregon
Jameis
ever
Winston.
cool?
Oregon was absolutely cool. I think that had a lot to do with their uniforms.
Their clothes more than their players.
But they had some the Chip Kelly offenses were fun to watch, and that combined with the neon uniforms that we've never seen before.
Shout out to our friends at the Kansas pregame. They actually just mentioned to me on Twitter, was Oregon cool?
Yeah,
Oregon
was cool. Oregon, though, now, and this is no disrespect to Bo Nix, who in some places I know is the Vegas favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. I don't think about offense when I think about Oregon. I don't think about, I don't think Oregon's identity as a football team is wrapped up in, they've got this spread and shred innovative offense. Their defense is awesome.
Yeah, their defense will ruin your life.
So they're a little different. But yeah, Colorado caught the zeitgeist because they had a couple of cool players, but they also had a celebrity coach.
Right.
We've never had that
Mhm.
before. We've had coaches who were famous, coaches who appeared in commercials. Never had a coach who was Deion Sanders, who was cool when he was a player.
The coach has never been the cool part of it before.
Yes. And the thing about the coach being the cool part is if you start losing football games, then that becomes a little less cool.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I thought we did. I thought we maybe would have a cool team, even if Colorado ended up going 6-6 and 7-5. They'd be a fun ride getting there. And they just got really grim vibes right now. Pat Shurmur's calling their plays. Deion Sanders all but said at the end of the Arizona game, "Hey, look, you're not going to put all this losing on me. Players make mistakes, not just coaches. Talk about the good things I did. But the players, I promise you Louis luggage, but I got some Samsonite out there too, and you are not going to pin their failures on me."
Samsonite's a good brand.
To which he is true, but that's not what you do. You don't throw your players under the bus. Players play, coaches coach. You win because of the players.
But no, that's a proper reaction. I would say that yes, we had a cool team for 6 weeks, maybe even less than that.
Maybe even less than that.
And they were I saw somebody tweet a couple of weeks, it may have been last week. There was a highlight of Shedeur Sanders hitting Travis Hunter on a deep ball, and they quote tweeted said, "Damn man, remember Colorado football?"
Ouch. That's cold.
They did. They
had a moment.
Yeah,
and that moment has passed.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Overreaction or proper reaction. We're doing college football today. Apparently.
No, you can do anything that you want. If you had an NFL one, ride with the NFL one. If you had your NFL one, go with the NFL one that you had holstered.
I will do a college football one. Overreaction, proper reaction. We will never see a coach get the Jimbo Fisher contract ever again.
Overreaction.
Yeah, I think it's an overreaction.
Overreaction. Here's the thing. It's an overreaction because we all go, yeah, paying $75 million for him not to coach. That's not out of the ordinary. It's not out of the ordinary. Like, that's the problem we're at right now. That's also the problem that we have with the college athletics type of things. Right now, we got Congress talking about we need guardrails for, NIL stuff. Why not have guardrails for, these stupid and idiotic buyouts that coaches have? But no, they'll continue to do this because, and this is the one thing, how I say, and I still am siding with my principles, but you know how we say, I don't care what John Smith, billionaire, does with his money. If he wants to pay for the entire offensive line at the University of, Chattanooga to have the best offensive line in the college football world, that's his money, right? Go do it, right?
Yeah.
I don't care how he spends his money. But yet, man, I feel slightly different when you're paying $75 million to an individual to go away. Like, can't that money go somewhere else? But no, because if the guy's like, look, this is my money, I earned it, I'm going to do what I want to do with it. And what I want to do with it is I want to get this guy out of our athletic department. It's my money. I'm going to spend it how I want to spend it. It just seems crazy to me. Like, at least it's going to the athlete, right? At least it's going to the worker. At least it's going
the labor,
to somebody who's 18 to 22 years old who might be able to, start something, even if he's not going to make the NFL, he's got to, hey, you know what he made, a couple, like Jared Casey, for instance. Like, Jared Casey ain't going to the NFL probably, maybe not trying to, talk down on Jared Casey. But hey, he got a couple extra
in
bucks
Sunflower Showdown week of all weeks, too.
See, I'm turning into you right now.
Who can we offend?
Like, do you see what I'm saying? Though, like, they're really going to give away $75 million to him just to stop coaching. Like, can't we send that money elsewhere? But it's throwing money. So
it's 76,
I think the difference,
technically speaking.
The people who are paying out that money, when you're, at the country club with your other rich oil baron friends, it's easier to say, well, my football team is going to have a new coach. Is much easier to say to your rich friends than, well, my alma mater is going to have a refurbished library.
All I'm saying is, like, I'm not arguing that there won't be like big coaching salaries anymore, but 10 years and $75 million fully guaranteed upon signing, that I don't think is ever going to happen again. Because unless you win everything, what are you paying for? Like, that has to be a coach that is going to win. And the coach that got it won a national championship. Like, if there was going to be a coach that it made some sense to give that contract to, wouldn't it be somebody with the resume of a Jimbo Fisher? And it failed.
He won a title. There's only like 4 coaches who've won an NCAA title right now coaching in like Division I.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I think
that's wild.
I don't think the arms race is going to end yet. I just feel like programs that have boosters with that kind of money, and there aren't many of them, but I think they are always going to be willing to do whatever it takes to buy a winner.
Because this has to be, like, if you think about it.
I mean, shoot, LSU got close, and they bought a coach that has never even won anything of any sort of real merit.
Yeah, how's that going for them?
They're going to end up going
good runner-ups.
8-4 or 9-3. But there's always someone else out. Like, I didn't even know that Brian Kelly was on the market.
Hey,
there's always a price. I think certain people who have that kind of power over college athletics are going to be willing to pay.
How many people contributed to that $76 million? Is it like, do you think it's like 5? Like, everybody gets together at that, country club and like, oh, I'll do 20. You'll do 20? Oh, you'll do 20? Well, we got 60 right there.
It's that old Southwest Conference mentality, right?
Like,
It's that-
how many
the
people?
one-upsmanship in the state where
How many
everything's
people did it take for who is Ross Bjork still the AD there? I don't know.
At A&M,
Yeah.
yes.
Is he really?
It is
still?
Ross
Wow,
Bjork.
he's been there forever. How many people did
He's
he
only
call?
51. You know that? I didn't learn that till
He's
yesterday.
like Joe Castiglione. Like Joe Castiglione got the AD job at Oklahoma when he was like 18.
I figure Joe Castiglione was involved in NCAA versus Oklahoma in 1984.
Right.
I just kind of assume he's always
He's
been
been
there.
the AD since literally he was 19 years old. I do wonder, like, how many people did he call? He got a speed dial, like in his like group messages on his phone. He's like super rich dudes, kind of rich. Like, how does he? How many?
I've got in my phone, I have paying for buyout and paying new coach salary as my two categories. By the way, all I'm saying regarding this, year to date, crude futures up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
As
They
long
gotta
as
make their money
as long
back
as oil
somehow.
keeps going up.
They got to make their money back
Yeah.
somehow, and you're going to be the one doing it.
Text from the 785 that kind of dovetails a couple of the things that we've talked about. In a hypothetical scenario where Coach Prime turns Colorado into a college football playoff team, how much would the university pay him? $75 million would be chump change. That's the one scenario where I think you're right, because I can tell you this. Coach Prime has already been worth every cent that the University of Colorado is going to pay him. He has already been worth all of that and then some to the university. And that's just by being him. That's just by coming up with some catchy slogans and selling merch. And if he's actually good at this to the level where Colorado's in the college football playoff every year, where that program is a national contender, they couldn't write it. They couldn't write him a check big enough. But that's him, and I think he's the only one.
By the way, Colorado Prime. I don't think Dion will get Colorado to the college football playoff because he'll be somewhere else before Colorado gets there.
Oh, he's absolutely
so,
leaving
too.
after next year.
Yeah.
As soon as Shador and Shiloh graduate, he'll take the next biggest paycheck he can get.
And his other son, Travis Hunter.
Yeah. Coming up,
Let's just be real here.
coming up next, we'll get to our random question Tuesday. right, time for a little random question Tuesday. All right. What feature would you like to have better? For an example, my son has got just a tremendous head of hair. I mean, it is incredible. Incredible. The amount of people that say, wow, I really love his curly hair. It's, kind of, almost just incredible blonde.
It's got what you call luscious salad.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, this kid, and it's curly. Everybody wants to play with his hair. Like, his hair is incredible. Is there a feature that you were like, I wish I had better, some people, a lot of people, it's hair, Is there something there that you go, wow, I'm really jealous of that person?
I mean, my salad's pretty luscious, so I don't know about that one. I don't know. I wish I hadn't started talking first, because now I feel like, oh no, I don't wish I had any other features. It's like, oh wow, aren't you something? I don't know.
I think the 6'4" guy asking the 5'10" guy this is bullying. If I may quote the noted philosopher Skilo, I wish I was a little bit taller.
I wish I was like 6'9".
I do wish I was taller.
Yeah, being taller would be cool.
Yeah, I wish I was.
Shut up.
I really do wish I was taller.
I don't have as many natural physical gifts as you have, though, so I actually need another inch or so to be able to dunk.
I can still dunk.
Yeah, I don't have that. I never had those kind of physical gifts. I do wish I had been a little bit taller, though. My volleyball career may have taken off to a different degree. I could have played at a crappy D1 men's volleyball program.
I absolutely would have played college baseball if I'd been 6'2" instead of 5'10", generously.
Real quick, mine. What is the most recent time you can remember hearing a song that did not fit the location or setting at all? I asked because last night I went out with my wife and mother-in-law to a deli for dinner, and I heard March of the Pigs by 9 Inch Nails twice on their playlist. Bizarre fit for the location. Great song, but did not fit at all.
I think it was sometime last February or March, or this past February or March. I went to Chipotle with my wife and in-laws, and I heard the theme from Halloween twice.
That's great.
It played, and then later it played again.
Yeah, exactly what I'm looking for.
Again, I want to stress this was February or March.
Like on Easter Sunday one time at Applebee's when I heard the soundtrack to The Grinch.
That's my daughter's favorite movie. We watch that year-round.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
It was also Easter.
We watched that
at Applebee's.
We watched that in July. Hey, let's sit, relax, and watch something. Grinch? Sure.
At least it's got a good message. I get it. That message last year round.
It's the newer Grinch. The one, not like the old school Grinch.
I love the old school one.
They're all good. Jim Carrey's is weird, though.
Agreed on that. Yeah, the new animated one's fine.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Didn't Wiz Khalifa do the theme song?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Pharrell is the narrator.
Yeah, Pharrell Williams.
Yeah, that one's fine.
Yeah, no.
What player has your favorite nickname in sports?
All of them belong to the late, great Jared Lorenzen. Every single one of them. The Pillsbury Throwboy.
The Hefty Lefty.
The Hefty Lefty. The Round Mound of Touchdown. Battleship Lorenzen. Oh, yeah. May he rest in peace. All the best ones belong to him.
There's some really good ones, though, man. I've always liked Allen Iverson's The Answer.
Yeah, The Answer is a cool one.
That's a good one. Yeah. I like The Answer.
He's in a great ad campaign now where people talk about AI and Allen Iverson shows up. That's great.
He was AI. The Answer is one that first popped in my head.
I've obviously lots of great answers to this question, but it came up because I have been delighted to inform people lately that Denver Nuggets guard Reggie Jackson's nickname is Big Government. He was the veteran player on a really, really young Pistons team a couple of years back, and whatever he said in the locker room was kind of the law. So
Big Government.
They start calling him Big Government.
That's pretty good.
Funny.
It's a very cool nickname.
There are
it goes
a lot
very
of good
hard.
nicknames. There really are.
Yeah.
Nigerian Nightmare Christian Okoye is a favorite.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. The one that came to mind first, The Answer.
That's a great one.
Yeah. I mean, I was a big Allen Iverson fan. I even wore the question shoes, which, by the way, that's like a top 5 shoe. The question 2s, man, they need to bring those back. Just pump those out every single year, and I'd buy one every year. I love those.
The street ball inspired nicknames. There was a kid, he never really made it. I didn't think he played college ball. There was a star high school basketball player in the Baltimore area named Akil Carr, and they called him the Crime Stopper because when his games were played, there was they could trace a reduction in street crime during his games.
That's cool. From the text line, the Admiral, David Robinson, that's a good one too. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones, man. Really, really is. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Kent Swanson on all things Chiefs here on 580 Sports.
He's not necessarily looked, like the 2022 version of Chris Jones. So, they need some, they need some help and some complementary pass rush, I think. But, I think, there's also a pretty good job watching them get the ball out of their hands a little bit. That kind of helped. But, they still didn't put together the same kind of consistent performance they have in the past. So I think its pass rush is primary concern, but it's not something I'm just overly worried about.
All righty, last thing on the defense. If you gave your MVP of the defense through the first 9 games, who is it?
That is a phenomenal question. I think it's Trent McDuffie. He's been unbelievable, and just what he's been able to do from the slot and seeing him make some of the plays on the football he's been outstanding for the entirety of the season. And when watching him kind of grow and watching things click the way that they have this year for him, kind of like we had him top 15-ish in our draft guide the year that he came out. We thought he was a blue chip player, and he's proving to be every bit of that. Just a phenomenal pick by Brett Veach, going up aggressively, trading up for him when kind of seems like the Buffalo Bills might have been sniffing around on him too. And I think they'd probably rather have him than Kaiir Elam right now. So it's Trent McDuffie for me.
We're joined by Kent Swanson of the KC Sports Network here on 580 Sports Talk. You can go check out all of Kent's work at the KC Sports Network and on Twitter as well at Kent Swanson. Kent, on the offensive side of the ball right now, the wide receivers have really generated the most gruff from the fan base and media. At least I think that's a fair way to assess it at this point. So when you incorporate everything that goes into being a wide receiver, when you think about route running, ability to catch the ball, separation, speed, all of those things, who's the Chiefs' best wide receiver?
Rashee Rice already. It's a low bar to clear right now, and I think that's the most disappointing thing. And the funny thing is Justin Watson, I think, is not funny, not trying to dunk on Justin Watson too much, but Justin Watson's up there too. But I think when you see with Rashee Rice, you see him being explosive with the ball in his hands, him getting a good feel and understanding with Patrick Mahomes, starting to build that chemistry, good zone awareness. I don't think Rashee Rice or Justin Watson are great separators against man coverage as it currently sits. But there's a lot of good things you're seeing out of Rashee Rice, production and the opportunities that he's getting, and upside to continue to develop. I think it's Rashee. Justin Watson's up there as well. And not to try to diminish, Justin Watson too much. He's going to have a career year. The Chiefs were smart to bring him back because, he's done a good job earning the trust of Patrick Mahomes and building consistency there. And I think that's ultimately the reason that he's finding these opportunities. But as far as just as a well-rounded player and a player with, the upside moving forward, I think it's got to be Rice.
When it comes to Patrick Mahomes and what he has done over the course of this season, we had someone tell us a couple of weeks ago they thought he wasn't the clear number one, undeniable best in terms of production this year in the NFL, but he was still playing like a top 5 quarterback. How would you assess what Mahomes has done this year? And I know that there are other factors like the play of his wide receivers and the play calling that factor into this too. How would you rank Mahomes right now, just this season in a vacuum relative to his peers around the rest of the league?
I think he's top 3 easily still. And I think the back half of the season, you're going to see him ascend to number 1 comfortably again. I think this is one of the most mature. This has just been an unbelievably mature season for Mahomes. I think he has managed a lot of stuff beautifully. It's not that he's been perfect, and not to absolve him of any blame for this offensive struggle. But I think Mahomes has managed games when he's needed to manage them. He's shown the patience. He's shown, he's not made super crucial mistakes, that have cost his team, a lot of games. And I think what he's doing is, he's kind of slugging through some big struggles offensively when it comes to pass protection at times, when it comes to the inconsistencies and lack of chemistry with some of these receivers. I think he's actually done a really good job handling all this maturely, just with how he's, appearing to communicate on the field, and really doing a good job of playing complementary football. Like it's game manager plus, but not in a derogatory way. It's being smart as they try to figure things out offensively and knowing when to be aggressive, when to not.
I don't want to ask whether or not you think Andy Reid is suddenly going to go to a heavier run, set of run plays in his play calling, because we know Andy Reid at this point. We know he is who he is, and that's not going to change. But do you think, Kent, that the Chiefs are using Isaiah Pacheco enough as it is, or the run game in general enough as it is? Or do you think to maximize their ability on offense this year, they should at least consider, hypothetically, maybe giving a little bit more of a load to Isaiah Pacheco?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good argument to have, maybe just a little bit, but I don't think I want to change too much of who this team is. And you've got to look at, people talk about let's look at the Chargers game. It was probably one of the most complete games that the Chiefs had offensively. Isaiah Pacheco, 13 carries for 32 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. He's been under. He went through a stretch where he's been under 4 yards per carry for 3 straight games. Vikings versus Broncos, Chargers, they won all 3 of those games. Lost to the Broncos, averaged 5 yards per carry. It's one of his highest yards per carry on the season. So, I don't know. I wonder if, I don't think they're going to change their identity. I don't think they're going to change their stripes. I think they could, carry, run the ball a little bit more. But I think ultimately if this team's going to achieve its ceiling, it's going to be through wide receivers figuring things out, roles being identified, identity in the passing game being identified. That's still going to be the driving factor for why this team, achieves the ultimate prize.
Our guest joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Kent Swanson of the Kansas City Sports Network, KCSN, joining us to discuss the Kansas City Chiefs just past the midway point of this 2023 NFL season. Kent, if you had to guess how the Chiefs offense might evolve in the second half of this season, things that might get added, things that might open up for the Chiefs as they go along, how would you expect, if indeed things get better, which I think everyone would expect them to, given who the quarterback is and who the head coach is, how do you think things will evolve for the Chiefs in the second half, particularly, again, as they go into November and December when they typically hit their stride as a team?
I think there is a non-zero chance that they've been playing things very conservatively with Kadarius Toney and his usage in his role. They spent so much time this offseason talking about wide receiver 1 Kadarius Toney, how he was going to be the guy. They thought he had more left in what he can do and what he can show on the field. They think he has a vertical element to his game. They think he has a downfield element to his game. And the first half of the season, he really didn't do much beyond some of your, manufactured, gadget type plays. So, obviously there's a disconnect between what they said in March and what we've seen. Now, is that because he missed all of training camp and they wanted to manage his injuries, which Andy Reid has kind of alluded to this week in his press conference? Maybe they're trying to manage him a little bit. And now down the stretch, we're going to see a different version of Kadarius Toney kind of sprung on teams as we get into the home stretch. I think that there's a chance that Kadarius Toney gets utilized a little bit differently than he has. You saw him run a little bit more traditional routes. The last time we saw this team against the Dolphins had that little slant route, which is, it's not something we've seen him traditionally do, in Kansas City. So I don't know. I'm paying attention to Kadarius Toney's role. I think it's going to be Watson, Toney, and Rice seeing upticks in snaps. I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling could see a drop. And I think Sky Moore is going to continue to see a reduction in opportunity. So I think it's more about the personnel than it is schematically.
You were asked earlier who the best wide receiver was on the Chiefs, and you submitted the rookie Rashee Rice. Including rookies and free agent signings, new additions to the team this year. At the midway point, who is the Chiefs' newcomer of the year to you?
Just at the receiver position?
No, anywhere. Team-wide award. Circling back to the whole team.
That's a great question. I think Drew Tranquill I think is probably the answer. I think he's one of the best free agent signings in the National Football League this year. The fact that the Chiefs were able to get him on a 1-year, essentially $4 million deal has been unbelievable. I think a lot of people were questioning why he wound up being available at that price point. And maybe there's a little bit of devaluation at the linebacker position, but I think he's been their best linebacker this season. Obviously how he plays with the green dot as the Mike linebacker is different than how Nick Bolton plays it. You're going to lose a little bit of the, thump in the middle of the field. You're going to maybe miss out on a couple negative runs here or there. But what Drew Tranquill does as a coverage player and how difficult he makes things for defense or for offenses, in coverage in the middle of the field is something this team really hasn't had. And I think you can attribute a lot of the success that this team has had, to more coverage ability, in the middle of the field. I think Drew Tranquill has been outstanding. I think that's a fantastic signing and the best newcomer. And I'm curious to see what kind of deal he gets. I wouldn't hate it if it was in Kansas City.
All righty, last thing. I got just two final questions for you, Kent. The first one is, what's the final record for the Kansas City Chiefs? Thus, then give me the seed that they get in the playoffs.
The Chiefs are going to be the 1 seed in the AFC. The Arrowhead Invitational will very much be in play. They are going to go 13-4. And they're going to lose one of those games in week 17 or week 18 against the Chargers because Blaine Gabbert and company are leading the offense, and they are game managing. They're just managing all of their starters.
Okay. All right. Last question I have for you: do your beloved Jayhawks beat the K-State Wildcats this Saturday?
Oh. I want to believe that they will. I do not believe that will happen this time around. And obviously just a lot of, a little attrition they're dealing with at a pretty crucial position. The most crucial position, I think, is a little too much to overcome. I think the Cats get it, but I'd be looking over my shoulder if I was Kansas State, because things are definitely changing in this region very, very quickly.
Alrighty, if Bean plays and was 100% healthy, do you think KU wins?
I think they have a shot. I think it's a 50-50 game, maybe 52-48 K-State.
Okay.
But even if Bean comes back this week, I think I don't know. I think it's going to be tough sledding. I don't think he's going to be back 100%.
Yep.
I just don't.
Well, we appreciate the time, Kent. Thank you so much as always, and enjoy Monday Night Football. Chiefs Eagles coming up, man. Absolutely. Going to be fun. Can't wait. Kent Swanson, KC Sports Network. He's got 13-4. That's including a loss at the last game of the year to the Chargers. So you think they lose one more game between now and the Chargers? I can see it.
Yeah.
Especially with the way the Bills have been playing. I mean, they got the 3 tough games left. Bills, Bengals, and Eagles coming up on Monday night. If they beat the Eagles, I think 13-3 going into the final game is doable. I think 14.
I think it's doable anyway. I think they can go 2-1 in that stretch.
I think though 14-4. 13-4 is doable. If they go 13-4, even if they go 12-4 going into the final game of the regular season, I think they're the 1 seed.
I mean, they'll play everyone if they are in contention for that 1 seed. I think they'll play everyone until they have that wrapped up. Selfishly, I just need the Chiefs to get to 12 wins. That's all I'm.
No, I need them just to get to 11 wins.
Yeah, you got it after week 1, didn't you?
Yeah, when they put the line at 10.5.
Yeah.
But thank you. Coming up, we got a lot more to get to here on 580 Sports. on 580 Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday. Jake Lavon, Brendan Warzinski, Dan Lucero with you. As always, hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. You can also check us out on our YouTube stream. Go to youtube.com. Very easy to get to that site. And then type in 580 Sports Talk. Pops up. You can click on it. Get you to our YouTube page. Hit the subscribe button, and then you will get notifications on the start of all of our shows and videos here on 580 Sports Talk. You can interact with us on our live stream. You can go to our website as well, 580wibw.com. We'll talk with Michael Swain of 24/7 about KU and, well, the game tonight, which will start around 9 o'clock. Are you more excited about the game, or are you more excited about getting the college football playoff rankings?
The game.
Yeah, games are real. Rankings are fake.
Hey, I've died on this hill for a long time. You only need to release one ranking. They're only doing this for PR and for all that kind of stuff. Really, only one ranking matters.
Yeah, but again, like we talked about yesterday, it's about sometime recently, it's about the argument. It's about It's
generate eyeballs.
The ironic thing is, it's made for people like us.
Yeah, but I can't stand it though.
Yeah,
I can't stand it.
we talk about it though.
You know what I do love? Content.
I hate it.
I mean, I also love content, but no, I get what you're saying.
I mean, if this is really all that it's about is the rankings, it shouldn't be about anything else. It shouldn't. Just give me the 4 teams at the end of the year, because then it drums up more controversy. Like, when TCU didn't get in it that one year when they probably should have over Ohio State, but they didn't, and Ohio State got in.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I hate defending the playoff, but I mean, how is it different?
Love this system.
How is it different than the AP poll? Don't lie. Don't lie to the people. It's a stupid system. It's a very dumb system. But how is it different than the AP or the coaches poll?
The difference is that the way that they select it matters right now.
The real difference is there's less poll inertia because you don't have a starting point. Because the
poll inertia is the thing.
Yeah, the Associated Press preseason top 25 is the starting point, right? That sets the standard for kind of how the rest of the polls look the remainder of the season. Whereas with college football playoff, you at least have to wait until there's actual evidence of how good these teams actually are.
Will Michigan now be number 1 over Ohio State since then they played Penn State?
No,
because that was the big knock on Michigan.
Yeah, but Ohio State, like if they've been ranking Ohio State based on resume, Ohio State still has a second win that's better than any other win Michigan has, and that's the win over Notre Dame.
But it won't matter next week, because then that'll change, and then the next week it'll change, and then finally after the Big 12 champion or the championship, I just am I want so many teams to have one loss. That's what I want. And part of me wants Alabama and Texas both to have one loss and see who they put in.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited for.
See, like, I'm on the opposite side of that. Like, I have no problem with the midseason polls. I don't care about the, like, who's going to get in drama. Like,
it's not the drama. I just want to know who they choose. Like, what was their criteria, their basis?
I'm going to tell you, I think they would put in Alabama. I think they will put in Alabama. If you got to that situation where you've got one team left and it's Texas or Alabama, each with one loss, who gets in? Alabama.
And they will argue, and maybe correctly, that Alabama has played better football than Texas down the stretch. And they might be right to say that. They really might.
That's very much the like in the analytical movement in sports. The stance is one game does not actually determine whether one team is better than the other.
Yeah, like if Texas and Alabama were to play on a neutral field this Saturday, Alabama would be favored, right?
By 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your argument. But the other argument, which I find to be also compelling, is if the result
Games
of
matter.
what actually happened on the field doesn't matter, then what are we doing here?
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, you just take the top 4 teams according to Vegas and you
Take the
roll 'em out.
top 4 teams according to 24/7 star rankings.
Yeah.
Put them in the playoff every
Star rankings? 24/7 has star rankings?
year. Like a
5-star recruit,
Oh,
a 4-star
okay.
recruit. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that will happen tonight in between the games. This is always fun.
Beetlejuice #1 on
Yeah.
the star rankings.
Yeah. But tonight,
Polaris a solid #2. The North Star.
Okay.
Now, I got to go with the North Star #1. I got to say that's the #1 for me.
It had its moment.
the
It's passed.
No,
We've
it's the most
passed its
iconic
moment.
of the stars. There's no star more iconic than the North Star.
Oh, so is Center College going to be #1 in the college football poll next week because it's iconic? No, it's past its prime.
I mean, what are you guys talking about?
We are embracing
Star
debate,
rank.
Jake.
We're talking about star rankings.
Well, you're big into. No, Dan's big into stars. He's got a star.
I do
Yeah,
have
Dan
a
owns a
star.
star. By the way, they're having a 30% off sale.
Still gets text.
I still get texts addressed to Jake because for some reason we use Jake's information but my phone number to buy a star.
The greatest grip I ever did in my entire life is that right there. Brent, let's use your phone number, not mine.
Why did I agree to it?
I don't know. I caught you, man. Oh, it's great. Can you not opt out of it or something? Or secretly you like getting the updates?
No, I can. I could text stop to unsub.
There you go.
I'm
So-
sorry. I don't need to text it. I need to text it.
Yeah.
For some reason, there's no E.
Yeah.
That's the loophole because they'll never stop.
Hi, Jake. Black Friday starts now. Name a star at our website. Use code BF50 for up to 50% off.
You could text that.
Yeah,
I think
cheap ass star.
Hey, I think you secretly like getting the text.
I want a star in the Crab Nebula, and I want it for 50% off. What can you do for me?
You get to pick where your star is.
Yeah, sorry, Dan. We picked for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever
like-
looked for it?
No, I have not yet been to an observatory to go
That's how cheap we are.
look for Dan and Abby's star. What is Dan and Abby's amazing star or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, it is something like that.
Oh man,
It
fantastic.
was a great gift, guys. It really was. I still have to get the certificate framed and mounted somewhere. You know where I'm going to mount it? Right above my cubicle. So you all can see it every day. We can all enjoy the gift.
Alrighty, Champions Classic tonight. Are you interested? Or is this just here's the people just always like to complain about the basketball during this game.
See, that's why I am all 100% in favor of it not being the first week of the season anymore. I think it is a good thing to have this game played after the teams have a tune-up.
Because they played 2 games each.
Yeah, and like KU, nor Kentucky, nor Duke, nor Michigan State is close to a finished product, but this isn't the first game after the exhibitions. Like, everybody has had a chance to play real basketball as a team. So I don't think we're going to run into another game like when KU had 28 turnovers against Duke a few years ago. Awful. I don't think we're going to run into a game like that.
KU by far has the best vibes going into this event. Duke's got a home loss on their resume to a good Arizona team, but still, home loss was a home loss. John Shire's first loss at home.
Also, still don't know if John Shire is like actually the guy.
Michigan
You
State.
can recruit. No,
He can't do that.
Michigan State is 2 for 31 from the 3-point arc through 2 games and has a loss to James Madison on their resume. And Kentucky, they're 2-0. They got, I think, out-rebounded. No, they didn't get out-rebounded. They were +3 on the glass against Texas A&M Commerce.
They only beat Texas A&M Commerce by 20. That should be a loss.
They are missing multiple
Bigs.
bigs.
Yes, like all of their bigs.
Yeah,
They're-
which is tough.
They're playing a 6'9" guy at center, and he's a wing. And they're playing small ball, which will make for a really fascinating matchup tonight. It's why I'm kind of interested to see this game, to be honest with you, because of the clash of styles. Like Hunter Dickinson having to guard the perimeter against a team that plays 5 out. That has not always been a very good proposition for the team that has Hunter Dickinson on it.
Yeah.
But Hunter Dickinson being guarded by someone who's 6'9", that sounds like he's not going to be stopped.
He's so tall. I cannot stress that enough. Like, you think, okay, I know what tall is. No, you don't. I was floored, and I've been around a lot of tall people.
Wow, look at you. Been around tall people.
Been around tall people. He was like, damn. And he can move so, like, I totally understand why Bill Self said he's the most skilled big man I've ever had. Because he's 7'2" and a legit 7'2". He made Naquan Tomlin look short when they stood next to each other. Well, they didn't really stand next to each other.
Stood near each other.
That was not even really near each other, but you looked at Dickinson and then you looked at Tomlin, you're like, man, he is 6 inches taller than Tomlin. But man, that day there at Lee Arena, K-State players and KU players were both there at the exact same time. They didn't even look at each other. Man, that was unique.
Beefing.
I don't know if it was beef and they just don't like each other, but most of the time they would at least have some interaction.
Nah.
None.
Business.
None.
Business.
And it wasn't because they're here for the kids.
They're here for the kids who want to be there for them. Like, KU fan kids, get over here. K-State fan kids, get over there.
Yeah, there was no, hey, yo, man, they didn't dap each other up. I mean,
I do think, though, and you and I talked about this at the time, I do think part of it is the fact that there's so much movement in college basketball. Yeah. These guys, like Devontae Graham and Barry Brown, they were bros. Like,
they
had a very respectful, they were legitimately friends. If they were to interact at something like that, they would dap each other up and chat and talk and whatnot.
The difference between playing against each other 6 times and
maybe twice. Like, there is a big difference there.
But getting back, sorry, I steered that. I took a real quick. I went to the roundabout too fast. KU's a 6.5 point favorite over Kentucky.
That's moved around a lot.
They're the older team, a more experienced team, and would seem to have a significant matchup advantage with Dickinson in the post, being able to score anytime he wants and rebound anytime he wants. So I understand why the lean is KU tonight.
Yeah, I would say so too. KU, if I'm not mistaken, according to the metric KenPom uses to determine experience and minutes played, 10th most among high major programs. So you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of like 75, 80 teams. KU's got the 10th most experience of anyone.
Makes
top
sense.
20 in the country overall. That's a pretty big deal in a game like this. You've got the one singular matchup that's going to be difficult. Now, I think, too, knowing that Hunter Dickinson is a difficult matchup for them, Kentucky is going to expend a lot of energy to try to neutralize him somehow, whether it's roughing him up or trying to get him away from the basket as much as possible. But that's where KU, I think, is going to run into some fun matchups with the kind of new school version of the high-low, because I think Kansas is actually going to find a lot of success this year offensively with Dickinson stretching to the perimeter and KJ moving in as your 5. Then you're going to get a lot of favorable matchups with that kind of alignment. So I think KU is going to be able to play around with that a little bit.
They get some open threes, too.
Yeah.
Kentucky does not shoot the 3 well.
No, which is funny because for so long it was just automatic they were going to shout the ball, but they really haven't for a couple of years now.
They do not shoot the ball well. This is a team that doesn't shoot the 3 well. So I like KU to win.
I do too.
I think 6.5 points is a lot of points in a game like this. It really, really is. If you're betting on basketball,
ball. You are so anti-betting on college basketball.
I am. Because I'm smart.
Overs are good plays.
I'm smart.
You're a coward is what you are.
I'm a coward that's smart. Yes. Yeah.
KU covered last year. Won by 5. Kentucky lost by 9 last year. They lost by 9 in double OT. There's not enough time to fall down by that many points usually in overtime.
That is what you call it, hitting 2 threes early on and then
going to the foul line.
Getting behind the sticks, if you will.
KU has been quite good at this event in recent memory. Wins.
They won 7 of the last 8, I think.
Yeah,
because they started out being bad at this.
Yes.
Yeah, they've won 3 straight. They lost in 2019 when KU ended up being the best team in the country. That was the year they had 28 turnovers.
Yeah.
One of the worst basketball. I think Duke had 24 or something. One of the worst games I've ever seen.
That was when people just nonstop complained about basketball. About no one cares about November games.
6-1 in their last 7. KU 6-1 in their last 7, and 5 of the last 7 over Kentucky overall.
After starting 1-4 through the first 5 years of this event. The one win was Andrew Wiggins had that big day back in 2013.
Against
I remember
Michigan State. No, against Duke.
Against Duke.
Yeah, that
Duke.
was
Against Duke.
Wiggins versus Parker. Yeah,
Yep.
Jabari Parker.
KU Duke have had some really fun games at this event. This also, circa, what year was it? 2014? Yeah, 2014. You may remember KU dropped a cool 40 in a game.
Yeah,
and lost by 30. That was the
vodka game.
That was the vodka
Yes.
game.
Yeah.
It feels like KU never plays Michigan State at this event. Like, I remember games they played against Kentucky, and I remember games that they played against Duke. I have no memory of a KU Michigan State game.
The only reason I remember, I think it must be the last.
I know they have played. It's just they don't stick out.
The last 2 times they've played, 2018, that was the one good game Quentin Grimes had at KU.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the one good game he had.
Yep.
I remember that one vividly because it was election night, and I had to go cover the Democratic Party in Lawrence that night. And I barely saw the game.
We were like, look at this guy. He's going to be so
He's
good.
the one. Well, not quite.
Not the way.
But the last time they played 2 years ago, that was Ochai's coming out party where it was, shoot.
Yeah.
Is he actually like the guy now? And then, yes, it turned out indeed he was. No, I'm excited for this tonight.
Yep.
I think both games are going to be interesting. I think Michigan State Duke might be the more intriguing of the 2 games, which is saying something because there's a lot of interest with the Kansas game, but it's not like you're playing the full strength Kentucky team, which is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, wins are wins. I'm not going to complain if KU wins, but it would be different if Kentucky had their 8-footers.
Just seeing how the game will operate with Hunter Dickinson due to Kentucky's situation will be fun. It will.
Yeah.
Coming up next, we got What Is Wrong With You. Then we'll talk with Michael Swain.
What is wrong with you time here on 580 Sports Talk? We'll get to Michael Swain and Jayhawk Weekly coming up in just a bit. But first, we've got to find today's winner in What is Wrong with You, which, as you know, is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications, saving you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field, right here in the capital city. Our winner for the week so far, it is the man who robbed a K Jewelers in, how is it, Lebanon, Indiana?
Lebanon. Yep.
Lebanon, Indiana.
Rob the jewelry store and tell them, make me a grill.
Nice.
I could have committed to that better.
Yeah.
I really could have put my chest into it.
The thought was good. And then the 34-year-old, after leading police on a chase, told them, "You're not supposed to pursue me." Tried to wave them on, like, no, it ain't me. Keep going.
Reached out the window, was trying to signal to the police officers chasing him. And then he hit a police car and created another set of problems for himself.
Tried to do the Jedi mind trick. This is not the car you're looking for. Doesn't quite work when you're not on Tatooine. 2 new stories today. I'm going to go first for today's stories. You're from Colorado.
Yes, I am.
Notably so.
I don't think people know that. I don't know if I bring that up. I don't know if I make that obvious, but I am in fact from the Centennial State of Colorado.
What are you wearing today, Dan?
I'm wearing a Stanley Cup Champions Colorado Avalanche t-shirt.
So you know a little bit about mountains. What do you know about the mountains of Colorado?
They're tall.
Mm-hmm.
When they turn blue, you can drink your Coors Lights, nice and cold.
The higher up you go, what's the temperature like?
It gets cold. Gets chilly up there. You also have a little bit of trouble breathing. The air gets even thinner the higher up you go. Mm-hmm. I have never myself climbed or had the desire to summit one of Denver's many mountains, one of Colorado's many mountains, the 14ers. Yeah, there are a lot of 14,000 foot and higher peaks, collectively known as the 14ers. I do know some people who have made it a mission to climb all of them, to which I offer a hearty thumbs up and a good for you, and I'll see you at the base.
Yep.
But no, that's never really been my thing because I've been up to Pikes Peak. I've been on the Cog Railroad that takes you right up to the top of Pikes Peak. I didn't climb it.
No. Well, you don't have a whole lot in common then with the subject of our first story today. A, he did want to climb the mountain, but B, he was apparently unaware of how cold they get at the top of the mountain because a hiker who was wearing only a cotton hoodie was found, quote, alive but very hypothermic after having spent 7 hours in a severe snowstorm without food or water in the Colorado Rockies.
Oh, boy.
The hiker, whose name and age were not released, was trying to summit a 13,000-foot ridge near Mount Princeton on Wednesday last week when dangerous weather moved in. The unprepared hiker had no way to stay warm. Quote, with darkness approaching and hypothermia setting in, the individual decided, rather than take the same way down, the best plan was to bail down an avalanche chute to try to get to a road. The hiker had a phone, but authorities could not obtain GPS information after they learned about the situation at 7 p.m. A 25-person team was sent out, knowing only that the hiker was in an avalanche chute east of Cottonwood Lake. The team spotted what appeared to be footprints in around 6 to 8 inches of snow and followed them until they came upon what they thought was an unusual-looking rock. Upon further investigation, it was determined it was not a rock. However, the subject sitting upright in the fetal position covered in snow.
So were they only wearing a cotton hoodie in the sense that that was their only protection against the weather? Or were they only wearing a cotton hoodie in the sense that they were literally only wearing a cotton hoodie?
I assume they had pants on. I think the hoodie was just their only form of warmth.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
Weather protection.
Maybe they were hanging out, though. I don't know.
Well, a long cotton hoodie.
Yeah. One of those big long ones, like a dress. The team spent 3 hours warming up the hiker before they got them down a steep gully at 5 a.m. Ropes were used to lower the hiker one section at a time before they told the rescue team they could help. The hiker walked the remaining distance to a waiting ambulance at 7 a.m. Yeah. Wore just a hoodie to climb a 13,000-foot mountain. Got stuck in a snowstorm and needed to be rescued.
Yeah, you got to be a little more prepared if you're going to take on Mother Nature like that. That's not going to go real great for you. That's tough. That's why, again, I say I see you at the base.
Yeah.
I'll admire these mountains the way they were meant to be admired, from afar.
From down below.
With a nice cup of hot cocoa.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, for my story today, we go to Tampa, Florida, and it's a sad tale, really, of Michelle McKinney, who is not currently receiving her Social Security benefits. Her son is 13 years old, and she's having difficulty buying food for him, keeping a roof over his head. It's kind of a sad story. But the reason that she's having this trouble is because the bank thinks Michelle McKinney is dead. She's not, but the bank thinks she is. She's been mistakenly declared dead, not once, but twice.
Oh, no.
She thought she'd fixed it once. Then it happened again.
Oh, no.
McKinney says the mistake started when her bank, Bank of America, told her someone called in to report her death. She says she asked if any documentation was provided to prove she died and was told no. Yeah, we just took their word for it. Somebody called and said you were dead. And we took them at their word. That was good enough for us.
Wow.
Bank of America not held to journalistic ethics of needing a second source for confirmation.
Yeah, apparently so. Goodness gracious.
Her account was frozen and Social Security benefits were returned, so she never received them. The mistake was corrected, but it happened again the next month. Now her Social Security benefits have been suspended, and she says she was told another adult would need to start receiving her son's benefits because she is, quote, unstable. A consumer investigator with News Channel 8 WFLA in Tampa has reached out to the bank and the Social Security Administration. They both reached out to the investigator and promised an escalated investigation, and that the bank said they would refund the money they took out of her account.
I would hope so. So I've always heard of people who will do things like tell their phone carrier to get out of a contract, like, yes, this person died. You cannot have any information, but you need to cancel their account right now because they died, which is obviously inappropriate.
If you could just call financial agencies and say, yes, I am dead, or this person is dead, that, maybe that's the solution for student loan debt in America. Just call the lenders and say you're dead. Maybe they won't check.
I guess, like, government apparently has too many things going on. Banks too busy with other stuff.
I'll say this, though. That's probably wishful thinking because it may make the agency stop giving you money, but it will not stop them from trying to take your money.
Yeah, that's true. That's certainly
true. They will never stop trying to take your money.
No, they will.
Who's they? They.
Yeah.
But no, it's just wild that the bank just took a person at their word that, oh, yes, this person is dead. So close their account and stop issuing them their Social Security benefits. They're dead.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Source, trust me, bro.
Yeah, that's genuinely insane. Who's got your win today? That's crazy.
It is. It's a very upsetting story. This guy went up a mountain. This person went up a mountain, like, dressed like I would dress to work.
Yeah. Threw on a hoodie and said, yeah, I'm going to go climb this mountain.
Pair of jeans and a home field hoodie. It was just like, yeah, this will be fine.
It is really soft. Like, I'm sure it'll keep me warm.
In November. It's November.
How do you not know anything about mountains and you want to go try to climb a mountain?
Like, it'd be one thing if you go up in September.
Yeah.
But even then, like, I don't know, a coat, some gloves, maybe a nice toque. Beanie.
No, I had one of those hoodies with the little slit in the cuff of it so you can put your thumb through and kind of keep the hands a little bit warm.
Pull it.
Yeah. And one of those athletic fit ones.
Height of fashion. I've got a quarter zip that does that. That's designed for running. You know what I don't do?
Run.
Run.
This guy should have run back down that mountain, you dunce. Does that beat our current winner for the week? You're not supposed to pursue me.
I still love the idea that he told the police, I was trying to tell you guys, I'm not the guy you're looking for. I don't know why you didn't listen.
Man, I respect the honesty. I really do. I had a plan. It just, you weren't supposed to be a part of it. We'll stick with that one. That is our winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. We've got Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain coming up on the other side of this break right here on 580 Sports Talk. Weekly time on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan, and we welcome in our good friend Michael Swain, who covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net. That's where you can go to check out all of his fantastic coverage of the Kansas Jayhawks. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can also go follow Michael on Twitter, where his handle is at mswain247. Michael, first things first, a happy belated birthday to you. But Coach Lance Leipold was giving you a little bit of a hard time in the press conference yesterday. You were just doing your journalistic duties, and he's over here like, oh, this guy's asking too many questions.
Yeah, it's all right. I don't mind it. It's something that I think shows that he pays attention to, who's asking, and I don't know. I don't think I was off base with any of the questions either. So it is what it is. It's all right. But that's also kind of who Coach Leipold is. He isn't necessarily you may seem like I
think at some point he probably needs a new joke, but I do always laugh when he jokes about the fact that, well, I did not know that fact about how terrible this program was. I wish I had known before I took the job. I think eventually it's going to get stale, but for now it still gets laughs.
It does. And hey, the more Kansas wins, the more it's kind of like these things kind of come and then they kind of go because they talk about first time since, and all of a sudden that record doesn't really matter anymore, right? Because it's first time 12 months ago, first time since 18 months ago. So, it's one of those things where we might be running out of things here in the next kind of year or two if the program continues to trend in the direction it's going right.
Hey, I'm certainly not going to complain about that. We will get to the basketball coming up in just a moment. Champions Classic tonight, KU taking on Kentucky. But first, on the football field, let's get to the quarterback situation first. That's even more important, I think, than the loss to Texas Tech. It sounds for now, from what we've heard from Lance Leipold this week, that it's trending like Cole Ballard is probably going to get the start at quarterback for KU against K-State. Why, Michael, is KU's approach that if you don't practice, you don't get the starting job? Because I think, and Jake mentioned this on our show earlier, like, hey, you've got a better chance to go with Bean. He's been in the system for a while. He's the better player. Why do you need to have him practice extra time? Why is it KU and this staff's approach that you've got to practice all week to get the start?
I'm going to be sarcastic here, but did you watch the Texas game?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good indication why they want a guy practicing all week. It's one of these situations where I totally understand, right? You hear about the NFL, right? Guy comes back, has one practice, boom, he's ready to go. College is different because they have such a limited amount of time on the field to work with these guys during the course of the week. And Andy Kotelnicki and the offense is so complex, and they have made it so complex because of the fact they had so much returning production. If you go back to spring football or preseason camp and you listen to Kotelnicki talk, so much of it was about adding layers to this offense. But because they had so much returning production, they didn't have to go back to square one. They could kind of start from kind of square 2 or 3 and build off of that. And so I think as this has gone on, right, Jalen Daniels was the guy, and Jason Bean got a lot of reps there too. But now you're looking at a guy in Cole Ballard, right, that it just doesn't have the reps in practice built up over this period of time where you need him now this week, right, to take those reps and get ready for this game. Because if anybody does need the reps, it is Cole Ballard, right? And you saw it on Saturday against Texas Tech. When he went in the game, it seemed like a lot of the pre-snap motion kind of just stopped, right? And we know how important that is for the KU offense. And if you watch KU's offense as a whole, it's one of the things that makes them one of the hardest teams to go against in the country because they put so much pressure on your eye discipline. And I think you saw that in the second half where, there wasn't a lot of motion and it was much more straight. And to the point where you lined up is where you kind of took off from to make it easier on Ballard. So it's one of these things where it's kind of a double-edged sword of having such a complex scheme like Kansas has, where you need guys to get reps throughout the course of the week so that they're in tune with the receivers. They know where they're supposed to be looking when guys are going in motion. And I think just that Texas game is a great example of what happens when a guy who we all know is talented, right? We all know Kansas can win games with Jason Bean. When he is thrown in to start the game without getting that week of practice, right, you see how out of sync it can look. And so that's why it's important. I think, for this game in particular with Jason, I think if he gets a Thursday practice, maybe they feel comfortable with that, and a Friday walkthrough. But again, that's all going to depend on what time of the week he is cleared to get back and practice it.
When it comes to what Ballard brings to the table, I was rewatching the game last night, and I mean, look, he's a walk-on for a reason. He's the third stringer for a reason. I get all that. But on the other hand, he, as a walk-on, has already surpassed at least one scholarship player on the roster, and Ben Easter's on that quarterback depth chart. I was actually quite impressed with the way he was able to finish runs. I thought there were pros and cons to the fact that he was willing to hang in the pocket, didn't bail out, didn't look scared. Also took multiple gigantic sacks in the game and didn't maybe have the timing that a more experienced or a better quarterback would have. So I think there are obviously pluses and minuses, and obviously you'd rather have Jason Bean or certainly Jalen Daniels out there than a Ballard. But what positives do you think he can bring? Or maybe the better way to phrase it is, when he is out there on the field, what sort of things do you think KU can lean into offensively that would play to his strengths the best?
Yeah, so I think a part of it is going to be making things easy for him, mentally processing things, because those sacks you're talking about were a mixture of when Texas Tech got pressure and they were kind of slower developing routes. That was kind of the combination when you saw Ballard get some sacks, and obviously that's huge against Kansas State, right? K-State loves to pressure. They love to put pressure on the opposing quarterback. And so that for me is huge in this game. But I think what the KU coaches will probably try and emphasize is making things on one side of the field for him, where it's, 2-3 reads that are all very simple and in line. Like when you saw him have success against Texas Tech, a lot of it was over the middle of the field where it is right in front of him. Cole, you look right down the middle of the field and you go here to here to here. And so I think that's one of the things they'll try and do. I think in terms of his mobility, they're not going to be running him right with option plays. I think we could rule that out, but I think even getting him into play action, getting him into maybe moments where he can roll out a little bit to get him out of the pocket. And so you look what he brings, right? He's an okay athlete. He's got an okay arm. And he's just maybe a little bit on the shorter side. But, when I watch him play, and this is not a like-for-like comparison, but I think it's some of the same things that make Brock Purdy such a great quarterback at Iowa State. He's tough. He's a gamer, right? He doesn't have the best arm, but he knows how to use it. And so I just watched him play, and I'm like, yeah, this strikes me as someone that if you give him time to prep, and I think by the time he is done at Kansas, right, he will be a stronger player with a stronger arm. But I think for this game in particular, it's going to be about making things simple for him. And really, I think the run game here is going to be really, really important.
Our guest is Michael Swain of Fog.net, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly, as he does every Tuesday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Michael on Twitter at mswain247. And again, the great work at Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Obviously, Kansas's defense is going to have to step up. If they're going to play a game with their third-string quarterback, it will be vital for the Jayhawks to get some stops and slow down an offense that's been one of the most potent, not just in the Big 12, but in the country, particularly at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. So what about that matchup jumps out to you? What will Kansas have to do to give themselves an opportunity to get the stops they need to make it a competitive game?
Yeah, for me, this is a really big game for KU's defensive tackles, right? If Devin Phillips can play in this game, he's got to play. Because you look at what Cooper Beebe does for K-State at guard, and I think he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink, right? K-State moves him around. They use him as a pulling guy, but if he has to worry about getting knocked back off the ball by someone like Devin Phillips or Tommy Dunn, DJ Withers, anyone that's defensive tackle, that changes the game a little bit. And you look what K-State has, right, in terms of skill position guys. They've got two really good running backs who are both in the top 20 in all-purpose yards in the conference. They've also got a really good wide receiver, right? That's also in the top 20 in the conference in all-purpose yards. So those three guys are really important. And so for K-State, look, Will Howard has not turned the ball over, really since the Avery Johnson, if you want to call it a saga, you can call it that, but whatever. Ever since Avery Johnson kind of started to come on, Will Howard is up to his game. I think he's got like one interception in the last 4 games, I want to say, something like that. And he's played at a really high level. And this is the type of game where you just need KU's defense to come up with one of those big plays. And we've seen KU do it, right? I think they played 5 home games. I've got 8 takeaways in those games. And this is the type of contest for me that I look and I point to Kobe, I point to Mello Dotson, and even OJ Burrows or Kenny Logan. Like, you guys have to come away with the ball at least once in this game for the team to have a chance at winning. If Cole Ballard is the starter, they've got to be able to do their jobs and really shut down what K-State's going to try and do, because they're going to try and run the ball and then build off of that. And we've seen for KU, right, when teams can rub the ball against KU's defense, things unravel really, really quickly. And what allowed them to have success against Texas Tech? Well, as soon as they stopped allowing Texas Tech to run the ball, the offensive performance for Tech fell apart. And so that for me is the big key to this game, right? Can KU slow down the run game, force Will Howard to drop back? And at that point, you're just praying, if you're Brian Borland or Jordan Peterson, the defensive backs coach, that one of your guys comes up with one of those big moments in a big spot that can flip the turn the tide of the game and get the crowd into it even more.
I want to go back to the Tech game because it certainly looked like for the first couple of drives that Texas Tech was going to be able to run the ball at will and move at will on the Kansas defense. And then that stopped, and Kansas did a much better job in the second quarter onward of limiting the ground attack, limiting Taj Brooks for Texas Tech, and that allowed them to stay in the game, make it a fourth quarter game. What adjustment was made by Kansas in that game, and is there anything they could take from that and apply to their performance against the Wildcats on Saturday?
Yeah, so I don't think it was really anything schematically, honestly. If watching the game back, what really stood out to me is just the defensive line held their own. They woke up and decided that they were going to play and not allow Tech to open up holes. And as a result, I think we've seen this season, right? KU's linebackers are, I don't want to say limited, but for them to play their best, they play in specific situations. And those specific situations are when the defensive line is creating very obvious places for those linebackers to go and tackle. When you've seen the linebackers struggle, it's when they're in space or when the opposing offensive line has opened up a big hole and the running back has an opportunity to juke left or right. And that's when you've seen linebackers struggle. And so for this game for KU against K-State, translating that, right, it's going to be about just mucking up the line of scrimmage and really attacking really the interior, because that's how this starts, is being able to not let them run between the tackles so that if they do try and run out into space, that's when KU's able to get their hats to the ball. And that, again, is when you've seen KU's defense look a lot better. So I think it really, against Tech and looking ahead, it starts with the defensive line. Those guys have to show up ready to play and ready to attack and get off the ball from the first snap. Because if they do that, KU's defense stands a chance. If they don't, it's going to look like the first quarter against Tech, and that was not good.
Just a couple more questions for Michael Swain. He joins us every single Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Make sure you go check out all of his fantastic work covering KU at fog.net. Michael, I wanted to get to basketball real quick. KU versus Kentucky in the Champions Classic tonight at the United Center in Chicago. What are you most interested in seeing unfold in KU's first real test of the season?
Yeah, for me, I think this team is so interesting, right? Because it's a lot of guys that have been around college basketball a lot, but they just haven't played a lot together in their current roles. And I think one of the most fascinating roles or role changes that you're going to see this season, right, is KJ Adams playing the 4. And tonight he's going to go up against Justin Edwards from Kentucky, who's a top 5 recruit, an incredible athlete, good size and length. And for me, like, this is the type of matchup where I'm really interested to see how Edwards in Kentucky guard KJ Adams, and then B, how Adams does defensively on the perimeter, having to guard someone like that for 30 minutes or so. So that for me is just so important to this season, because if all of a sudden KJ Adams can't play the 4, I mean, man, like, the KU's in big trouble at that point then, because you're asking then, where exactly is KJ going to get minutes, right? They're going to have to play him because they need to, because there's no depth really. And so for me, this is such a big game to kind of get a feel for where KJ Adams is in kind of figuring out this role, because I think Bill Self will, over the course of the season, right, find tweaks and adjustments to make sure, KJ is in the right position to have success. But if there are moments within games that it's not working, I think that's going to be a little bit of a beige, yellow flag-ish area for me going into March Madness, when it takes, a coach making a specific adjustment in a moment that throws off anything for 4 or 5 minutes, and it can be hard to respond to that when you're in a do-or-die situation.
Before we get to a moment in which the roles for Nick Timberlake and Elmarco Jackson and Johnny Furphy are a little more clearly defined, and for now, while they're still kind of jockeying for playing time and starting jobs and closing jobs and things like that, which one of those three do you think has the best matchup in this game against Kentucky?
This is one where I think the experience of Nick Timberlake will help, but I honestly think someone like El Marco in this game, where you look at the guards that Kentucky is going to play with, well, what is El Marco bringing to this team? It's defense. And I think this is the type of matchup where you can see the ability that El Marco has on the defensive end of the floor, right? They're not going to ask him to score a bunch against these Kentucky guards, but it's going to be, hey, can you not get off the dribble? Can you hold your own? And I think this is the type of game where you'll see that flourish for El Marco. And I just don't know if, Nick Timberlake is at the point yet where defensively he's there. And, Johnny Furphy probably is going to be asked to do a little bit different, playing closer to kind of a 3-4 than a 2-3.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net. He does it better than anybody else. Make sure you go check out the website. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And make sure you're following Michael on Twitter as well. At mswain247 is his Twitter handle. Michael, enjoy the basketball tonight. Enjoy the Sunflower Showdown coming up on Saturday. And we'll see you at the booth for that one.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. See you then.
That's Michael Swain from Fog.net. Awesome stuff covering all things Kansas Jayhawks. And again, Fog.net is where you can check out all of Michael's work. What a freaking game that's going to be on Saturday. I hope it's Bean that goes. Nothing against Cole Ballard, but I do hope it's Jason Bean who plays in that one. We've got to get to a break for the national and local news. We'll come on back in the 5 o'clock hour. We've got plenty of college hoops to get to. Champions Classic, K-State's win last night, plus our 580 Sports Talk headlines. It's all coming up in the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. it's the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on a Tuesday afternoon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We're off at 6 o'clock. Don't forget that tonight, not on our airwaves, but you can watch it on ESPN. 8:30 is the scheduled start time. It will not start at 8:30, though. Kansas basketball will take on Kentucky in the Champions Classic. We'll talk a little bit more about that matchup coming up in just a little bit. We'll also get to K-State's win yesterday over South Dakota State, including some news in the wake of that game on the K-State side as well. That's coming up here in just a few minutes. We've also got a deep stack of headlines to get to for today. That's coming up in just a moment. We'll get to your texts. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And we will also get to your comments on our YouTube stream as well. Head to YouTube, search 580 Sports Talk. Our channel will be your first result, other than the ad that inevitably pops up. Make sure you subscribe. Then you can watch the video live stream. Aloha, if you're watching the live stream today. You can check it out. Check out all of our old back catalog of shows. You can check out our post-game streams. We'll have a new Chiefs one after the game coming up on Monday night in just 6 days. And, of course, all of our other video content, it's on our YouTube channel, which, again, is the same name as our show. It's called 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. My first one, Dan, it is the big news from the NFL today. The Buffalo Bills have fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey after about a year and a half on the job. He replaced Brian Daboll, who left to become the head coach of the New York Giants. That, in and of itself, not working out super well at the moment. Dorsey was previously the quarterback's coach for the Bills, was promoted internally from QB coach to offensive coordinator. The metrics, the advanced numbers, the math, big fan of the Bills offense. Success rate, expected points added, things like that.
I've got all those numbers in front of me right now.
I know Mina Kimes tweeted them today.
Yes,
yeah.
Mina Kimes has those numbers. The Bills third in DVOA offensively in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
First in success rate, which we talked about earlier. Third in EPA per play, expected points added per play. Fourth in QBR, quarterback rating. Third in yards per play. That's not one of those nerd numbers.
That's pretty simple.
That's simple division for you. Second best third down team in the league, third down conversion percentage. Third best red zone team in the league. So, in just about every way, the Bills have an offense that like 3/4 of the league would love to have.
Yeah.
The problem is Josh Allen and friends can't stop turning the football over. And I struggle to see how that's Ken Dorsey's fault.
I think for me, because anytime there's a move like this, a hiring or a firing head coach, a coordinator, I like to go diving into, where the greatest minds on earth collect. And that's places like Twitter and message boards.
Yes.
To just get the pulse of fans. Like, how do you feel about this? And I've seen from a lot of Bills fans today that there have been complaints about creativity and that there's just not a whole lot of it in the Bills offense. And okay, I understand that. I can understand that complaint. There is also a lot of what you have expressed today, that this feels like you've got Sean McDermott, your head coach, firing off your final round of bullets, hoping that you finally hit something before the chamber's empty and suddenly someone else turns their gun on you. Like, you're desperate at this point. Your back is up against the wall. And a lot of Bills fans who feel like, and again, this is not all Bills fans or all NFL people, but the subset I have read from today, essentially feel like they have peaked with who their head coach is. And I can understand that feeling. I
think that's correct.
I think so too.
I think they've maxed out. I think the Sean McDermott era has maxed out.
And that's why I said it earlier, that I really do think a year like this, if you are committed to Josh Allen being your quarterback, and I still think Allen is very good. I do. Even though the turnovers have been a massive problem. You cannot deny that. I still think they are going to build their future and their competitive window, as long as he is there, around number 17. And I think that is a fine approach. Sometimes a year like this can be a good thing, where you just hit a wall and it's proof that, hey, look, we got to do something different. I was complaining about it earlier, that they have not done anything, or not nearly enough anyway, to improve the roster that they have right now. They haven't added enough skill position players. Their offensive line has not gotten any better. The big move they made defensively was to add Von Miller, who, on one hand, even in advanced football age, is still a good player, but you also run the risk of a higher chance of getting injured. That injury came. He is not Von Miller anymore. He is a shell of Von Miller, and who knows how much of his old self he'll get back once he is fully back from last year's ACL tear. I don't think they have done enough in that degree. So I think you can hit a wall, bounce back, and this is an opportunity if they miss the playoffs to make those changes. Maybe you move on from McDermott, or you bring in, new coordinators, whatever it ends up being. You spend in free agency, whatever it ends up being. I saw this happen with my favorite team in 2018. It was over with Mike McCarthy. It had run its course. He had a lot of wins, a lot of good seasons, but it was time. It was tired. It was stale. The talent wasn't quite there. He's out, made a bunch of free agent moves, hired a new head coach with a new voice, had a lot of success right after that. Shoot, almost a more similar situation than that. Another one of my favorite teams, the Chicago Bulls, almost a decade ago at this point, they fired Tom Thibodeau. Tibbs won a lot of games with the Bulls, and he's a good coach. Stubborn as all hell, but he's a good coach. But it was time. Like, it just, you ran out of new things you could do. It was a stale voice in the room. You weren't going anywhere. Now, the problem with that, in that specific case, the Bulls hired the wrong guy. Fred Hoiberg was not cut out for that job. He just was not. Nice guy, not cut out for that job. They made the wrong hire. That does not mean, though, that getting rid of the guy who's there right now is the wrong decision. So the Bills would have to hire the right guy, but that doesn't mean that McDermott right now should be kept just because, it's fine. Like, that's the worst time to keep a head coach, in fact, is when, it's just fine.
Yeah.
And I feel like if the Bills end up missing the playoffs with that quarterback on that salary and with these expectations,
that's the kind of thing that gets a head coach fired.
Exactly.
Especially when the head coach is out of fixes, right?
Yeah.
There's no more fingers to put in the dike.
Because you chased out the defensive coordinator who got you to where you were a couple years ago in Leslie Frazier. You've now chased out the guy you picked to replace the other guy. Who's next? You going to bench Josh Allen?
Yeah, typically you get, as a head coach, you get to fire both coordinators.
Uh-huh.
And if you replace them and it still doesn't work, then the next guy who gets replaced is you.
Yeah.
Like, that's generally how this works. And I think that might be where it's headed because, like I was saying, we talked about this in the 2:00 hour. I have watched the Bills the last 2 weeks and just come away very unimpressed with their coach, their coaching, like how well they are coached.
I agree.
How well they handle like the game stuff, the little mistakes that they make. I don't think well-coached teams make those kinds of mistakes. So Ken Dorsey, I think, is getting scapegoated. And I think there's going to be some team out there in the NFL who hires one hell of an offensive coordinator next year when they hire him.
I think the other fascinating part of this with Joe Brady getting hired. Joe Brady was the biggest name in all of football in 2019 when he was the passing game coordinator for LSU. One of the greatest college football seasons of all time, 2019 LSU. And how he was thought of as the guy who unlocked Joe Burrow.
Yes, he was the future.
Yeah. And
he went to Carolina.
He got out of Dodge, and he's made it clear, like, he's not going back to college. Like, he's an NFL guy. He happened to be in college that year. Went to Carolina, didn't work out. Nothing worked out in Carolina under Matt Rule.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
It was not necessarily Joe Brady's fault, but that 1 year sort of took all the shine off of his star.
Big time. I mean, who knew that he was Buffalo's quarterback's coach? Like, of all the people, oh man, Joe Brady's next. He's the next big thing, next big college head coach, next big NFL coordinator or head coach. Who actually knew that he was the quarterback's coach of the Bills? I knew he was in Buffalo. I thought he was an analyst. I didn't know he actually had a job.
I saw that name. I was like, oh, yeah, that guy. I remember that guy.
Yeah.
That's what happened to that guy. Good for him.
Turns out the guy who unlocked Joe Burrow maybe was just Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
might have just been. He's still pretty good.
Could be. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see what Joe Brady's got cooking there in Buffalo. First headline for me, and Brett McMurphy has just reported on this in the last 15 minutes. We have discussed yesterday the nature of the Big 12 football tiebreaker and how it could benefit Kansas State if Oklahoma State, and Texas were all to win out. And Kansas State, of course, were to win out, because that scenario would put Kansas State in a three-way head-to-head tiebreaker with both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And even though Oklahoma State has beaten both Oklahoma and Kansas State, because Kansas State has not played Oklahoma, the head-to-head doesn't come into play in the three-way tiebreaker because the three teams did not all play each other. That would then send the tiebreaker to a different space that would give Kansas State the edge and send them to Arlington with a chance to defend their Big 12 championship if this all were to unfold. Naturally, this feels a little unfair to some people, mostly people of the orange persuasion in the state of Oklahoma, people in greater Stillwater. And like, I get it.
Greater Stillwater.
Greater Stillwater.
Not a whole lot outside of Stillwater.
No, there's like, I don't know what lesser Stillwater is, to be completely honest with you. I don't even know what you would call that. Like the pirate ship
at the interstate exit.
The interstate exit, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like a long way from Stillwater. Anyhow, it does seem a little messed up that the technicality of one team not playing the other means that Oklahoma State having beaten both of the teams they're tied with would then not matter. But that's how the multiple team tie rule is written. This is how it is written in the Big 12 conference bylaws. If at any point the multiple team tie is reduced to two teams, the two-team tie-breaking procedure will be applied. All remaining teams in the multiple team tiebreaker will repeat the multiple team tie-breaking procedure. Number one, head-to-head, best cumulative win percentage in games among the tied teams. If not every tied team has played each other, go to step two. And step two is record against the next highest placed common opponent in the standings based on record in all games played within the conference proceeding through the standings. Well, apparently, the Big 12 is going to issue a clarification on the rule that if multiple Big 12 teams are tied and one team has wins over the other teams in the tiebreaker, that team wins the tiebreaker, which would then give Oklahoma State the advantage in a three-way tie with Oklahoma and Kansas State. And this at once, I don't know how this can be two things, but I think it is two things at once. Shout out to Travis Kelce in that commercial.
Mom!
It is both just and unjust.
Yeah.
It is just that Oklahoma State's wins over those two teams should count for something, because it should. It is also unjust to rewrite the rule book 2 weeks before the end of the season.
Yeah.
So I don't blame Oklahoma State fans for feeling really good about this outcome. I don't blame Kansas State fans for being irate about this outcome. But now, if you're a Kansas State fan and you're wondering, well, are we locked out of Arlington? No, not quite. You need either Texas to lose to Iowa State and for Oklahoma State, and Kansas State to win out, which would then create a four-way tiebreaker, or you need both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State to lose at least one of their last two. So, and then, of course, in this scenario, Kansas State has to win. Either scenario, K-State has to win out. There's no path to Arlington where K-State loses. So that is where things stand, according to Brett McMurphy, saying that that has been a clarification issued. Not a rewriting of the rule, the Big 12 claims, but a clarification. But I don't know what there is to be clarified. It seems pretty straightforward. It's head-to-head. If not every tied team has played each other, you go to step two. That seems pretty unambiguous. So it feels like they're changing the rules midstream, which isn't really fair to anybody.
No.
But at the same time, is also rewarding the team it should probably reward.
Yeah, that's probably true. Probably true. I mean, at this point, I understand if you're frustrated, if you're a K-State fan or anyone else, but go take care of business. Do everything you can to help yourself and go win the next 2 weeks. That it sucks if it is indeed a rewriting, which it sort of feels a little bit like it is, but just go take care of business. Do everything you can to win this weekend and then go win next week. It's K-State's got the most interesting schedule left of anyone in the league.
Most challenging of the contenders, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I get to go play the Sunflower Showdown and then Farmageddon back-to-back weeks. Yeah, it's certainly tougher and more intriguing than anyone else who's at the top of the conference right now. Next headline for me, let's stick with college football. This news developing, let's just say, right here at the top of the hour. This is from Tracy Pearson, who covers UCLA athletics for Bruin Report, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Says that UCLA is likely to fire head coach Chip Kelly Numerous sources are indicating it's likely UCLA will fire Chip Kelly, but there's the little matter of the USC game this weekend. If the Bruins are to win, Kelly's dismissal could be delayed to the end of the regular season. According to sources from Pearson, he says it is now very realistic and even likely that UCLA will fire Chip Kelly after the USC game. If UCLA actually beats USC, the dismissal could be delayed until after the Cal game. The Bruins are 6-4 this season after suffering back-to-back losses to Arizona and Arizona State. Those losses have advanced UCLA's intention to fire Kelly, who has been embattled in his time in Westwood because of his underwhelming results and quirky approach to coaching and recruiting. I'm going to rephrase
it's quirky because they're like a 500 team when he's around. It wasn't quirky at Oregon when they were kicking ass.
Yeah, I'm going to rephrase this. If you want to describe his coaching as quirky, I don't think that's 100% accurate, but fine. Here's how you explain his recruiting. He hates doing it.
He does.
He hated it at Oregon. He hates it now at UCLA. He hated it when he was an FCS coach at New Hampshire. He has always hated recruiting. It's why he never wanted to go back to college in the first place, but no NFL team would give him the time of day after he flamed out in Philly and then straight up failed in San Francisco.
Yeah, you don't get to fail 3 times. Typically,
No.
unless you're Josh McDaniels.
Yeah. That's a special kind of failing too. I thought this would work out better than it has.
I did too.
It worked last year. They won't go 8-4 in the regular season last year?
Something like that. Well, they had a great quarterback.
They had a great quarterback who was 25 years old.
That
You have a grown-ass adult at quarterback. Yeah, that helps.
It does, typically, yes.
Yeah, it worked out for Dorian Thompson-Robinson a year ago. This year, with a young, highly touted quarterback in Dante Moore, plus Ethan Garbers, the Cal transfer, who is solidly whatever, it has not worked out so well. And he doesn't love the college game like that. He doesn't like to want to have any desire to recruit, which you've got to be able to do. You know who you really have got to be able to do that against? Teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, Washington, the big dogs of the new conference you're going to be in. If you can't out-recruit those guys, you're not going to be able to compete with them, let alone the other programs nationally you got to face off with. At first, I thought, wow, I'm kind of surprised. But honestly, I'm not. Like, this season has really fizzled out after that 6-2 start.
Yeah, that loss to Arizona State was kind of the breaking point. Like I know they were down to their third string quarterback, but the whole thing with Chip Kelly is you're never supposed to only score 7 points.
Yeah.
If Chip Kelly is calling your plays, like that defeats the purpose of having Chip Kelly be your coach if that's what can happen to your offense. So
as far as I can tell, the big problem here is that nothing has changed. Like, his offense was revolutionary at Oregon, but it's been somewhat neutered and not advanced at all since Oregon. And the fact that he's a weirdo who doesn't go get the best players he can get, that makes it tough. Makes it tough.
Do you know how many times in the last 20 years UCLA has finished the season ranked in the AP top 25?
Oh, twice? Once?
4 times.
Okay, 4 times. I remember looking this up.
Yeah, last year they were 21st in the country in the final AP poll. Back-to-back years they were ranked in the top 10 or the top 20 actually under Jim Mora. 16th to finish 2013. They were in the top 10 in the country in 2014. They went 10-3, won the Alamo Bowl. And then they were ranked 16th in the country at the end of a 10-2 season in 2005 under Carl Durrell. Yeah. I guess I have the same question generally for UCLA as I do for Texas A&M. Like, how good do you think you should be?
Yeah.
It's a good question. How good do you think you should be, and how good do you think you can realistically be? I have no idea what to expect from the West Coast schools going into the Big Ten. Zero idea.
I would tell you right now, I think, just off the top of my head, ranking of the teams best positioned to compete in the Big Ten right away, I would rank it Oregon, Washington, moderate step down USC, sizable step down UCLA. Because all of those schools, like Oregon, I think has a star head coach in Dan Lanning. I do. And we talked about it earlier. They've got a thing. They're going to beat the crap out of you. They're going to beat you into submission. And if they have any...
And they're going to do it wearing cool Nike uniforms.
And if they have any semblance of offense, they're going to win a lot of games. like this year. Like their offense has put up a ton of points and yards, and their defense is their better unit. Washington, I think, as long as they keep DeBoer, they're going to put up points. Now, it's hard to replace a guy like Michael Penix going forward. They'll have to figure that out. But I like DeBoer a lot. I think they're going to be just fine. USC knows what they want to be. They want to be finesse and cool and score a lot. I don't know who their head coach is going to be long-term because I don't think it'll be Riley. And what is UCLA? Like, what do they want to be?
Problem is, I think for a lot of schools is you have boosters that like came of age in the 1980s, and like UCLA was awesome in the 1980s.
Yeah.
They had a run from 82 to 88 where they finished 5th, 17th, 9th, 7th, 14th, 9th, and 6th in the final AP top 25 polls, and they won 3 Rose Bowls in 4 years under Terry Donahue.
Pretty good.
They are not that program anymore. Like the 80s are over, man. College football is a completely different sport than it was in the 80s and 90s. And those are the glory days for a lot of these programs. They keep chasing it and firing big money, big name coaches and hiring the next big money, big name coach for bigger money and keep spinning their wheels. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I would push back, though. I think USC, of the 4 programs that are entering the Big Ten, that's the one that should think every year we should be with Michigan and Ohio State every year.
Okay. All right. Let me rephrase. I think as currently constructed, the ranking I gave is how they will go in terms of being contender. In terms of should we be in that class? Yes, USC absolutely should be. I agree with that.
USC's baseline should be 10-2. Like there's no reason they should ever be worse.
Yes,
than
agreed.
10-2 in a given year.
Agreed.
USC.
You have everything you could ever want. You could fill an entire roster with like high 3-star to 4-star or better talent every year with just kids within 100 miles of the campus. You seriously could.
Yeah.
And this is where they are.
Next headline for me is a sad note from the world of Major League Baseball. Peter Seidler, the chairman and owner of the San Diego Padres, passed away this morning at the age of 63. Seidler survived cancer twice and recently had a procedure in the month of September, a medical procedure. So no cause of death was listed, but can certainly, draw some lines that maybe Seidler's health had been failing now for a few months. The majority ownership of the Padres will remain in the Seidler family moving forward. The reason this is, I think, so affecting in Major League Baseball, number one, by almost every account that I have seen, Peter Seidler was a wonderful human being. Like a genuinely good guy who loved baseball and loved the Padres and cared about San Diego, cared about the fans, cared about the game. And the other reason you could tell that he cared about San Diego and he cared about the Padres, and he cared about the game because he tried to put a winner on the field. We got off a few jokes last week, and by we, I mean me, about the Padres having to take out a $50 million loan to meet some financial responsibilities towards the end of this past season. They may have spent beyond their means a little bit. It may lead to them having to trade Juan Soto this offseason. In fact, that is the widespread expectation across Major League Baseball, is that Soto will be traded in the final year before he hits free agency. But you cannot say that Peter Seidler did not try to win in San Diego, did not spend big, did not encourage his front office to make moves, did not hesitate to give long-term contract extensions to superstar players. It has not worked to this point. They played in the championship series last year, not this past season, but in 2022, they reached the National League Championship Series. But this was an owner who had a desire to put a winning team on the field, and he was rewarded with a full ballpark. Like if you watched a Padres game last year, they were selling that joint out. And San Diego is an interesting sports town because everyone is left. It's just the Padres and like minor league hockey and indoor soccer and
San Diego State football.
San Diego State athletics, which not a Power 5 school. So like the Padres are it. And seizing upon the opportunity to be the big league team in the city and to try and contend, Peter Seidler opened up the checkbook. And it was very clear that his number one priority as an owner, beyond making money, beyond investing in real estate, beyond getting upgrades for his ballpark or any land he owned around the ballpark, The number one priority was trying to put a World Series champion in a city that did not ever have before a World Series champion. It remains to be seen how the Seidler family will manage the team in his absence. But I will tell you this, baseball could use a hell of a lot more owners like Peter Seidler. Rest in peace.
Cared about San Diego, cared about his team, by all accounts, cared about his players. Yu Darvish had a very kind message about Peter Seidler today and his kind soul. May he rest in peace. I mean, he clearly impacted a lot of people. And I know that, there's a lot of reasons why a lot of people have just inherently negative viewpoints of, billionaires, people, sports owners specifically in our line of work. But look, if you're going to stay out of the way when it comes to managing the baseball stuff and you're going to give your fans and you're going to give your team the best chance you can to win, that's good with me, man. That's good as much as I could ask for from a sports owner.
If you view a sports team as a public good, right, like something that is supposed to entertain the public, the least you can do is to try and make it as entertaining, as good as you possibly can. And there's no question that really over the last 5 to 6 years, the Padres have done that. The Padres have made a good faith effort to try and win baseball games by putting acquiring great players, paying those great players and putting them on the field. And the reward is you sell at your ballpark and you build a long-lasting relationship between your team and your fans. And for an example of what happens when you don't build that relationship, go to a game at Coors Field next year and see how much of the crowd is rooting for the opposing team.
That's going to do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Let's get to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some college basketball. KU tonight. K-State with a big win last night. A little K-State news to get to as well from John Rothstein. That's coming up on the other side of this break right here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, 535 on this Tuesday afternoon. John Rothstein of CBS Sports reporting today that Arthur Kaluma is expected to return to the lineup for K-State coming up on Friday when the Cats take on Providence down in the Bahamas. Didn't play last night. Does add, and I think this is significant, Naquan Tomlin remains indefinitely suspended with no timetable for a return. We had heard, I think, it was
Jeff Goodman.
Jeff Goodman last week that, like, weirdly optimistic given the other reports and the tone from Jerome Tang about Tomlin's future. So Rothstein says, no timetable for a return for Naquan Tomlin. That is status quo. Getting Kaluma back, I have to imagine, and we knew going into yesterday that it wasn't going to be anything super serious.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just K-State saying we don't need to see Arthur Kaluma against South Dakota State. Good team for the mid-major level, but we don't need him for that. We do need him against Providence or whoever we end up playing in the second game of Baha Mar. So I think that makes an amount of sense. You got to watch the entirety of the K-State game last night. What stood out the most to you from a win that was a good win? You win by, 23 points over a team that we think is going to be contending for a Summit League title this year. That's a good win.
Yeah, spread was 10.5. That's a team that could be a NCAA tournament team. Probably if they do make the tournament, you're talking about like a 13 seed probably. And K-State ran them off the floor. Never really let them threaten in the second half, which they had kind of allowed Bellarmine to do on Friday. The thing that stood out was Cam Carter. Talk about K-State having dudes. Cam Carter appears to be on a trajectory towards dudehood. He had 25 points last night, knocked down 4 threes, and I am so impressed. He's barely recognizable as a player. For one, he got a haircut. He's ditched the dreads. He's got just kind of the, I don't really know how to describe it. It's not close cropped, but it's not like a full-fledged afro. It's kind of a medium crop hair look that he's got going. And so he's literally unrecognizable in some ways. I keep reminding myself, oh yeah, 5 Carter. Gasson the same way. Like Gasson's got different hair. It just he's got a little more hair than he did last year. It's throwing me off. It's some first few games of the year is throwing me. But the thing that Carter is doing is scoring in every which way. And yeah, I mean, it's one thing to take guys from Bellarmine and South Dakota State off the dribble. It's going to be able to do that in Big 12 play, but it's the willingness to do it.
Yeah.
And, the creativity in midair, some tough finishes, the reliability from three. This has a chance, I think, to be a better 3-point shooting team than last year.
I think so.
Because as much as it was fun to watch Marquise Noel go bombs away from the parking lot and knock down a 30-footer every game, he was only like a 33% 3-point shooter. Tyler Perry's going to shoot better than that. And if you have improved shooting from Cam Carter, it looks like RJ Jones can help them as a 3-point shooter off the bench. This could be a better shooting team from the perimeter than last year, which is big. They were 14 to 25 from 3 last night.
Pretty good.
Tyler Perry was 6 of 8. And you see it. Like last night, you could see like it's the quick release. It's the range. You could see why he's one of the best shooters in the country. But the most exciting development to date through 3 games for K-State is that Cam Carter looks like a real player, like somebody who can be a lead scorer. You always need the alpha, right?
Uh-huh.
Last year, K-State knew who the alpha was, or the alphas, plural, were. And I think this year, when you lose 2 All-Americans, like who's going to be the alpha? You expect Kaluma eventually to be a player like that. Tyler Perry's a great shooter, but I don't know that he's like, I don't want to say he doesn't have that dog in him, but he's not the guy I think of as, he's going to go take a game over. When they need a bucket, he's going to be the guy who gets it. But if Cam Carter can be bucket getter in big spots, because he's playing with a ton of confidence here early on, that's a big step for him, and going to make the Cats a lot better.
The number one thing I was most intrigued in seeing from K-State this year, and it's too early to make a definitive statement about it, but I said this at some point over the summer, I believe it was, when the transfer portal window closed, was the development year to year of the guys who were sticking around. Like last season, what Jerome Tang and staff were able to do getting Marquise Noel to a less reckless spot. And there were, like selective recklessness, essentially.
Yes.
Like, hey, you have
controlled
the keys.
Recklessness.
Seriously, though, like you have the keys if needed to go. To make something happen. And sometimes that leads to a mess from behind the arc, but sometimes it led to true magic. And that was obviously a plus coaching-wise for this staff. And it is clear that this team, the staff, this head coach, can coach up a group in front of them. They came in, had a group that they built largely because there were so many transfers, but were able to work with those products as they existed. I wanted to see what can they do bringing guys back. What is the year-over-year improvement going to look like? I was mostly thinking regarding Naquan Tomlin, the guy who might have NBA potential. But I think Cam Carter is a great example of this, a guy who was a fine role player in obvious 5th out of 5 starters last year. But if you can get him from, yeah, he's a fine Big 12 player to, no, shoot, he's a really good
Big 12 player?
Yeah, you can land on an all Big 12 team somewhere. Yeah, that's another feather in the cap of this coaching staff. And that's what I most wanted to see from this staff this year. How will those guys develop? And way too early. I mean, I need at least until the start of the new year to be able to make any sort of definitive statement because non-conference games, it's hard to make those kind of declarations. But the early returns are really good with that guy. And if you can get that kind of production all year long, or at least through the majority of Big 12 play, yeah, you're looking at a guy who's going to make an all Big 12 team, and you're looking at a major, sticking point positively for how good this program's development is.
Speaking of good early returns, this freshman class, boy, I'm telling you what, I think all 3 of those guys could play like big rotation minutes this year for K-State if they needed them to. And they may not need them to, which is a nice luxury to have. Like, I don't know that you're going to need 25 minutes of RJ Jones or 25 minutes of Day-Day Ames or 25 minutes of McCaleb Rich on a night in, night out basis in the Big 12.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to lean on that if you're a team with the tournament aspirations, but I think they could give it to him. Like, RJ Jones has a stroke, and Day-Day Ames he had 7 assists last night in a starting role, handing out dimes, setting guys up, playing a playmaker role. And McCaleb Rich probably has the furthest to go of the 3.
Sure.
But late in the game, he's going right at SDSU's bigs and scoring with touch in the post, with moves and strength and finesse. And then he threw down a dunk with about 15 seconds left that about brought down Bramlage Coliseum. And all of his teammates said after the game, just wait. There's more where that came from. So, like, obviously there's tremendous athleticism, explosiveness there. I really like this freshman class. I think that Jones and Ames, like I think that long term they're going to complement each other so well in that backcourt. And Rich looks like the kind of front court freak athlete that you need at the 4.
Yeah,
like he's got to get a little stronger, and we'll see about it on defense, of course. But like, I'm really, really impressed with this group. I know it's 3 games in, and look, I probably sat behind one of these microphones and said, oh man, look out for these freshmen, when it was Deshaun Gordon and the other Gordon and
Antonio.
Yeah, Antonio Gordon, and then whoever the third guy was in that class, Selton Miguel.
Man, who was the dude who just couldn't stay healthy?
Was that Selton Miguel?
No, that wasn't. No, Miguel played. Miguel was Fitz's guy.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about. Oh, my God.
I do know who
he
you're
came in
about.
Around the same time as the Gordons.
I do know who you're talking about.
This is going to try
Montavious Murphy?
It must have been Murphy. Yeah, it was Montavious Murphy. He just couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah. And so, like, yeah, I've said good things about a freshman class at K-State before. I know I have. This feels a little different because I think they're playing with, like, a lot of confidence early going. It's not just, I see that they have rudimentary basketball skill. It's, these guys look like if they needed to play 30 minutes tomorrow against Providence, they might not win, but they carry themselves in a manner befitting a starting caliber Big 12 player. Like, I think they've got legit, like, they can go.
Yeah, man.
I like the group a lot.
The 2019-2020 Kansas State basketball roster was so disgusting. I'm sorry to be insulting, guys, but this is disgusting.
It wasn't great. No.
Sean Williams, Dejuan Gordon, David Sloan, JUCO transfer. Remember him? McCole Maween after he had forgotten how to play basketball.
So they were so good. Like, they were legitimately a much better team with David Sloan running the point, but you couldn't take the ball out of Cartier Jada's hands. So they had a real dilemma.
Yeah, big time.
And the dilemma was Bruce should have sent Jada packing about mid-season and just let the chips fall.
God, Nigel Shad. I think he ended up at Cal State Bakersfield, if I remember correctly.
James Love. He was in the he was the one came off the bench at the brawl at Allen, right? He had the white pants.
Yes, the meanest thing that Fran Fraschilla has probably ever said about a player, he said about James Love after the brawl. He said he put forth more effort in that fight than he did in his entire career as a player.
He played 5 more games. He played 5 games as a senior at Eastern Michigan. That was the end of James Love's college career.
Yikes.
Nigel Shad, by the way, 11 games at Pacific as a junior, 17 games at Delaware last year as a senior.
Year?
Yes, correct.
Oh my.
Fun. Where are they now? Antonio Gordon finished up 2 years ago at Southeastern Louisiana.
The Lions.
Montavious Murphy did not play after leaving Kansas State after his sophomore year, or at least did not play Division I. And then Deshaun Gordon was well-traveled. He played for 4 college teams. No, he's still in college. He is playing for UT Arlington this year.
How?
I don't know.
We need an injunction. Like, this must stop. It has to.
So I don't know. Like, obviously, he got the COVID year back.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he got a freebie year because he was on the New Mexico State team that had to shut their season down.
I bet he did. I bet he did.
Wonder
After someone was murdered? Yeah.
And, like, teammates were sexually assaulting each other? Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Like,
awful.
the worst.
God, what a disgusting era. Y'all K-State fans are so lucky you got Jerome Tang now. I'll just tell you that. Real quick, one final thought on K-State. This next weekend is a big deal. They'll play Friday, Sunday. They'll get Providence on and Kim English, their new head coach, on Friday. And then Sunday, they'll play either Georgia or Miami. Georgia's probably got more natural talent on their roster. Miami's more fun, I think, because A, I love Jim Larrañaga. And B, you know who's still on that roster?
Nigel Pack.
Now that would be a lot of fun.
And he's the main man this year. Like, it's him. Like, well, he's like
him and the big and Poplar.
Yeah, Wooga Poplar.
Yeah,
they still got Wooga.
Wooga.
They really like Wooga. They think he's gonna be awesome.
He's a good player.
Yeah. That'd be a good test. Like Miami, like USC is a team that will really test you early on. I hope K-State gets that game. Whatever.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, I'd rather them get that game than the Georgia game. Whatever outcome leads to it, that's the game I want to see in the Bahamas.
And after that, the next 3 games before, K-State gets Villanova. The problem with that is Villanova sucks. Kyle Neptune is awful.
They lost to Penn last night.
Yeah.
As in Pennsylvania, as in the Ivy League school. They lost to an Ivy at the Palestra.
By multiple possessions.
Yes, it was not like a March Madness buzzer beater. It's awesome, baby. Like, Villanova was down most of the second half.
So between, we'll say the LSU, they play Villanova, LSU, Nebraska, Wichita State all in a row. That's a good stretch. But between this weekend and then they play Central Arkansas, a down Oral Roberts team, and North Alabama, which I don't know if I knew they were Division I. So
the Lions.
Yeah. Getting a good showing this weekend, I think, would do a lot for this K-State program. We have to get to a quick break. We'll come back. We'll give you our picks for tonight's Champions Classic. Duke, Michigan State in the opener. KU, Kentucky in the closer. We'll get to that next on 580 Sports Talk. Speaking of guys who I can't believe they still have eligibility, do you know, and moving on from K-State to KU, do you know what Tristan Enaruna is up to these days?
I don't. Please tell me he's playing college hoops.
15.7 points a game for Cleveland State.
Hey, he's a Raider.
He is. He balled out last season. Yeah, he's on his 5th year of college basketball. If you had told me he's on his 8th, I would believe it.
Vikings. Sorry, I got them confused with Wright State.
Yeah, they're both in Cleveland, I believe.
I think so.
Wright State is nearby anyway. But yeah, he averaged over 15.5 a game last season, too.
He's a Viking.
Good for Tristan Enaruna. CJ Moore's guy. CJ was a big Enaruna guy.
Is that his 3rd or his 4th school? Because I know he's at Iowa State.
His 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah, KU, Iowa State, Cleveland State. That's a better fit for him, obviously so. Real quick, KU versus Kentucky tonight. Who you got?
I think KU wins. I think that Dickinson will be too tough a matchup for Kentucky, and KU will make enough threes to keep the Kentucky defense honest.
I do think this one's going to be a little bit lower scoring. I'm predicting a close game because that's how these usually go in the Champions Classic, although I do love that both teams had a couple of games before this to warm up for the contest. I'll take KU. I'll say they win a close one, 71-67. Lower scoring. I think Dickinson's going to have a big day. I think McCullough's going to have to be big in this game, shutting down some of those athletes offensively for Kentucky. The other game, the opener, Duke, Michigan State. Who you got? Both teams already have a loss this year.
Yeah. Duke is favored by 3.5. If Michigan State continues to shoot, let me do some quick math here. 2 for 31 in their first 2 games from 3, which almost doesn't sound possible.
No, that's not great.
But yeah, if they continue to shoot like 6% from 3, I don't think they're going to win. They are big enough to cause Duke some problems, though. I think they're going to lean a little less on the 3 ball, and they're going to try and go at Nick Filipowski, do basically what Arizona did to him, and try and play bully ball. I just don't think Michigan State's as good at that as Arizona is.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I think Duke will win.
Real quick, from 2-point range so far, Michigan State is shooting 52.7%. From 3-point range, they are shooting 6.5%. Not 65.
I was off by 0.5%.
6.5%. Yikes. That's coming up on ESPN tonight. We've got to get to one final break. We'll wrap up 580 Sports Talk right after this with the final word. We're wrapping up 580 Sports Talk with the final word on this Tuesday afternoon. You're up first, Dan.
I think I'm quoting Roman Reigns, a professional wrestler, when I say to the Buffalo Bills, you're done, you're washed, It's over. Maybe I just mean that for Sean McDermott's tenure, that they've ridden that as far as they can ride it, and it's inevitable that McDermott will lose his job at the end of this year when the Bills don't make the playoffs. But, yeah, it feels like that window might be slamming shut on somebody's fingers in Buffalo.
I thought you were going to say, "Ooh," as your quote.
I don't know that one.
Oh, yeah, he does that all the time. Final word for me today. I'm kind of excited about the Champions Classic this year. This is going to be a fun test for KU. First real matchup for either KU or Kentucky this year. The two have played some incredible battles in recent memory. I'm fired up for this one. And on the other side of the state, I'm fired up if you're the Kansas State Wildcats. That's a good win you had last night. And by the way, I just talked about how big this weekend is for the Cats. Providence is currently thumping Wisconsin in a mid-afternoon contest. That game's at halftime. Providence is up 16. It's going to be a good test coming up on Friday. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow at 2 o'clock for Jake, for Dan. I'm Brendan. This has been 580 Sports Talk.